the Architectural Board of Review for Monday, January 11th, 2010, with the first order of business being the election of the chair and vice chair. So the floor is now open for nominations of the chair position.
I'd like to nominate Christopher Manson the chair.
Any other nominations? Seeing none, we'll do an oral vote, being that there's only one nomination. Everyone in favor of the nomination for Christopher Manson as chair, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
I abstain.
And then elect the new chair, Mr. Christopher Manson Hing. And now we'll take nominations for vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Dawn Zima. I mean, Dawn, sorry. Dawn Sherry for vice chair. Sorry, Dawn.
Any other nominations for vice chair? Seeing none, we'll do an oral vote for vice chair for Ms. Dawn Sherry. Everyone in favor of the election of vice chair of Ms. Dawn Sherry, say aye.
Aye.
And seeing that's unanimous, congratulations, Ms. Dawn Sherry, as vice chair. And we'll continue the meeting with general business items with the newly elected Mr. Christopher Manson Hing as chair.
Thank you very much. So let's see, appointment of consent reviewers. Oh, so this would be the election of people for consent?
Yeah, we can continue on. Last year we had Mr. Gary Mosel and Mr. Clay Arell as the consent review members, doing a 3-month consent rotation. It's just up for re-election. You can continue that over, or anybody else would like to, if they would like to continue, or if anybody else wants to do that position, now would be the time to appoint the consent reviewers.
Well, I'd like to nominate them both for consent review if they would like to continue doing it.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to mention to you that we do the elections of officers at the beginning of January, and we also coincide these updates of committee roster and appointments, typically because there are new more board members being appointed. In this case, we don't really have that. We have reappointments. So if you want to maintain status quo, that's fine. You can state and review those assignments and maintain them. This gives you an opportunity to revisit them only if you need to.
Well, I guess it's not having had a chance to speak to the individual members to ask them if they had any objection. I'm happy to have them maintain the status quo, and if anyone would like to see a change, I'd be happy to hear from them. So, Clay, would you like this to do consent? Gary?
Sure.
Okay, so we'll maintain the status quo for consent review.
Okay.
And so appointment of subcommittees.
I'm going to pass out a list of the 2009 again, and we can again just update it or to maintain status quo. I'll just take one and pass it down.
Mr. Chair,
Dawn?
I don't mind staying on as sign committee liaison.
Thanks very much, Dawn.
Chair, I was wondering for the sign committee for the alternate whether or not Keith Rivera would be interested in sliding into the alternate spot, which then means eventually sliding into the primary spot. Even though I didn't pre-warn him about that.
That's fine.
Okay. So we'd have Keith. So that's sign, you said?
The sign committee alternate would be Keith Rivera.
Okay.
And that's all right with Clay?
Any other comment on his subcommittees? I'm fine staying on the ones I'm on. Gary Solar, Don Sherry on Streetlight.
Solar's dead.
Solar's dead?
The subcommittee.
Okay, so as far as the subcommittee, we only have one change, would be the alternate on the sign committee to be Keith Rivera. And then we'll keep on with that. We don't have any comment from Carol on her position, so. So, public comment. Anyone in public would like to speak to the board on an item that's not on the agenda? Please step forward. Seeing no one, I'd like to bring it back to approval of minutes of the ABR of December 14th, 2009. So can I have a motion to open that up?
Make a motion.
So Paul for first. Thanks, Keith. Keith for second. So anything before in general business or before item 1? Item 1. Item 2. On item 2, number 3 of the motion, number 4 of the motion, I wasn't sure about the wording here, but I think it should be study berming and upgrading against the building. So just the word and. Item 3. On number 7 of the motion of item 3, it should read, provide on the plans the locations for future lighting and pre-install conduits if at all possible. Item 4. Item 5. Item 6. Item 7. Okay, that's it. The rest was consent calendar. So all those in approval of the minutes as revised, say aye. Aye. Against? Motion carries. Thanks. One abstention.
Mr. Chair, do I have to abstain because I was absent after the break?
You
No.
can abstain for those items, or, I don't know.
Okay. Okay.
Okay,
Fine.
great. So, that be consent now?
Okay, a motion for the Monday, January 4th consent calendar.
To open that up? Do I have a first?
I'll first it.
Paul for first, second by Don.
Consent calendar for Monday, January 4th. Item A, 30 San Ynez Street, preliminary and final approval as noted. Items were reviewed by Clay Arell.
Thank you. All those in favor of the consent agenda as revised, say aye. Aye. Against? Motion carries. Announcements, request by applicants for continuance.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Sorry.
Also a consent motion for today, January 11th.
Okay, can I have a first for that?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Keith, first, second by Don.
Consent agenda for Monday, January 11th, 2010. Item A, 3979 State Street, preliminary and final approval as noted. Item was reviewed by Clay Arell.
Thank you. All those in favor of the revised agenda say aye. Aye. Against? Motion carries. Okay, item G, any announcements, requests for continuances, future agenda items and appeals?
I have just one announcement. I just wanted to let the board know that the appeal hearing of 803 North Milpas will be held at City Council on Tuesday, January 26th. And at this time, the case planner said it is not relevant for an ABR member to attend. It's not design review related issues.
Okay.
Just wanted to bring that announcement.
Thanks.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, I mean.
I passed out a new pamphlet that the city of Santa Barbara has created. Gives you some quick information, or gives the public some quick information about how to navigate through the planning process, and give some background information on why this was created. We had some residents that came forward after some appeals and projects that were approved that were not familiar with our process as far as when they could come in and speak to our process and the appeal requirements and time periods, and also where they could find information on our city's website. Some people have a difficult time navigating it. So what we did was worked with a intern and a member of City Council's office to come up with some information that we could put out readily, as well as a central planning site. It's called Planning Central, so one can actually type that in and go directly to the information relative to planning, and all this information is conveyed in there with links. So we think this is a step towards simplifying our process and gives people a one-stop location to find what they need to find about development in the city. So hopefully we'll get some good feedback from the public as well as the boards. If you're welcome to critique it and see if it is helpful as you think it might be.
Great, Hammy. Thanks. It looks good. Okay. So, item...
Sure.
Yes?
I'll be stepping down for item 1.
Okay. Any others? No? So, subcommittee reports? Yes.
Board briefly on the next G subcommittee meeting that we just had at 2 o'clock.
Yeah, I think
Just
that's
quickly.
a good idea. So we have a subcommittee set up, and I guess we should add that. We can add that to the list of subcommittee. But for the next G microcell review, Gary, Paul, and myself, and Gary and Paul would take the lead on that review. We met with Jaime Limon this afternoon at 2 o'clock to go over the application itself and the review process that they will undertake in the next couple of days, and a brief schedule on when they'll be able to come back with the finished review. Anything else you think I should add? Yeah? Okay, that's it. So that ends general business, and we can start with item number 1 of the day, 825 De La Vina Street. Oh, thank you.
But still,
Sorry. Thanks. Ooh. Ooh. Okay, while this set up, I will read the minutes of the last meeting. This was 16th of October. So we have continued indefinitely to PC and returned to full board with the comments. Study the use of red tile roofing on the project and either introduce additional red tile roofing or redesign the rear roof to be a flat roof to match the other roofing design. Study the paving pattern design and permeability at the driveway. Study the architectural starkness of the project. Provide additional detailing of the proposed design style. Study the north side elevation of the second and third floor for additional massaging relief as it relates to the northwest elevation. The board finds the project is consistent with the compatibility analysis as follows. The proposed project complies with the design guidelines and is consistent with the city charter and applicable municipal code requirements. The board finds no negative aesthetic impacts to the requested rear setback encroachments, as the area of encroachment is for residential use only and not any commercial components. The project's design is compatible with the city and the architectural character of the neighborhood. Project's mass, size, bulk, height, and scale are appropriate for the neighborhood. Project's design is appropriately sensitive to adjacent city landmarks and adjacent historic resources. Project's design is progressing in regards to the amount of open space and landscaping. The board encourages the applicant to study opportunities to provide an increased landscaped area and additional landscaping amenities along the front of the property. Okay. Yeah. Press the middle of the bottom. There you go. The light goes on.
Mr. Chair,
Yes?
Kelly Broadison,
Yes, Kelly.
Assistant Planner. I just wanted to let the board know that this project did go to Planning Commission on December 3rd, and the Planning Commission reviewed the project and requested that the applicant look at eliminating the modification, which is at the rear of the property line, and also look at doing something with the front along De La Vina Street. And in this case, I believe the applicant has removed the request for a modification at the rear and has, instead of having 2 parking spots in the front on De La Vina, they now have only 1 parking spot in the front and have put one of the other guest parking spots towards the back, which is where they've created additional space. So because the Planning Commission requested that the project be redesigned, that's why it's back before you today, prior to returning to Planning Commission.
Okay. Thanks, Kelly. Okay, if you can state your name for the record. And
Jeff Ridnour, one of the co-owners of this property, 825 De La Vina. Just real quick, before Lauren gets started here, we also had some concerns from our neighbors in the rear since at the Planning Commission, so we've met with them, and we've I feel like we've made some good ground as far as they're concerned about some landscaping, trees, the aesthetics in the back and how it looks, and so we're in good conversation to try to come up with something that is acceptable to them and giving them participation in the actual landscaping elements that are chosen here, and then maybe tweaking some of this back rear here to make it more aesthetically pleasing to them.
This is the front.
Excuse me.
Yes.
The back. I apologize. The back here. Some more detail potential there in the back that would make it more pleasing to them to look at. So we've met a couple of times with one neighbor here, and then one time today with this neighbor here, which I think they're going to be here to speak about their concerns on those items. So we're just doing our best to try to work with the neighbors and work with all surrounding neighbors and, of course, our front with what PC has asked us to do in the front. And I just wanted to introduce it on that level, and I'm excited to see these changes and how we've been able to kind of mix all the concerns surrounding us to where we stand today. Thank you.
thanks.
Lauren Hinkle, I'll be representing the project today. So as Kelly mentioned, the planner, we removed the rear yard modification by increasing the rear yard setback to 16 feet by narrowing a few of the units and working out so we could eliminate that request for the modification. And in addition to that, Commissioner Lodge requested that we move one of the guest parking spaces from the front to the rear of the property, and have done that, and by so doing increase the available area for landscaping at the front of the property towards the street. Let's see, let's continue on. These are a couple of exhibits that show the elimination of the rear yard setback and show the compliance. the setbacks at the rear of the property. So you can see here again where.
Sorry. Same thing or
This is a different exhibit that shows the compliance to the solar ordinance, which does not apply because this is to the northwest of our neighbors to the northwest of us.
Okay.
So, as you can see, it's 16 feet here, and then also additional open space here. And again, we're trying to provide them privacy by not having many openings towards the west, and keeping that 2 stories as we go up the project. Again, along the rear of the property, minimal openings, and we also we removed the sloping tile roof that was atop this kind of utility side and dropped the plate height slightly to break up that elevation. So now, as we'll travel along, you'll see the changes that reflect there. If I could have. And again, at the 3rd floor, we've increased the setback to nearly 34 feet, as you can see in that section, and also in the plan there.
Okay, what was it before?
I believe it was somewhere around 28 feet. So let's go through. Also requested some more scale-giving elements throughout the project, and we've added those in the nature of trellis and lattice work throughout the project. So if you travel around the perspectives, you can see some of those additional elements that add shadow lines and break up some of the scale. And then the bottom of the center shows shows most clearly the elimination of the slope roof and transition to the flat roof. And then also at the base, there was previously a tile roof there, and eliminated that portion to make it more consistent throughout the whole project. And then also brought down the plate heights of the bays as well to break up that line as well. Take a look through the elevations, and you can see here. And here's some examples of the lattice work and the trellis that will help soften the building by allowing some of the vines to grow up the building and out to help, again, break up the scale. And here's the elimination of that slope tile roof. And then you can also see it on the north elevation here, the flat roof, and dropping down, stepping down, and to be sensitive to our residential neighbor to the west.
Anyone want to see photographs on it?
And again, these are the interior elevations to the project, and again, the trellis that's consistent throughout, and the awnings at the 2nd floor to help break up the scale. Turn time over to the landscape architect.
Lori Romano, landscape architect with Arcadia Studio. And the main changes we made were been described, but I'll go through them. We, because they reduced the size of the building and shifted it, we were able to gain more planting area, which before we had a minute amount, just basically a strip. It's really hard to see, but here it is. You know, we had very little parking. Planting, like 18 inches, and now we have a generous planter where we can get screen shrubs in here. We also have a low wall, and I've added, able to add trees here. And then we have an existing street tree podocarpus here, and so then this podocarpus is very small right now, but we're going to do a mid-sized canopy tree, so as the podocarpus grows, it would be an understory to that. We've also added planting in the front of the building, and before we had absolutely no planting. There you go. And so we were able to add shrubs in there, and then we've got the lattice work going on. We also have a trellis structure that will be on this property line, and it will cover the utilities, and vines will grow up it. Also, to pay attention to the street, we added a little low fence and an arbor, and then vines will grow on top of that, so people that enter from the sidewalk will go through this little arbor gated area, kind of very pedestrian. Added trees. All along this property line wall will have vines growing up, but before we did not. We did reduce the scale of the paving. We added more planted joints, but we broke down the scale. Before they were bigger modules that were in a running bond. Now it's a grid pattern with some just colored concrete. This is colored concrete with planted joints. Take you in, did a little revision of this little open space just to make it more in keeping with the shape. Since it got a little tighter, I just made the seat wall rounded so it kind of turns its back on the neighbor and focuses more towards a tree. We also, at the request of the neighbor, we have provided screening shrubs, and we alternated them within the size of the trees. So there's the trees plus the shrubs, and then some low ground cover at their request to help screen our project, but it was at their request. We're not doing it to hide our building. It was their request, and working with them that is why we did it.
And you're providing it on their side?
On their side, because they asked for it.
Okay.
Yeah. And then in the back, we have the other, and by the way, the guest parking is grass paved too, so it's going to be planted. And pretty much, it's a guest parking space, so it will or will not, be always used. We removed the other guest parking spot back here, which is also grass paved too. So we have this nice length of driveway, or not driveway, but more like a pedestrian court, and then it ends here, and then we've got the grass pave. We added trees here, and these trees are going to be selected with the neighbors. So it's the look and feel that they want. If they want something solid, it'll be solid. If they want something lacy and open, it'll be lacy and open. And what we're proposing to do is have maybe a bigger size box tree right here, and then two smaller ones. So then there's some change in texture or change in elevation. Again, running through here, all these little red areas are where trellis is. There's a trellis running all the way along that back property line as well, until where their fence starts. Added more trees, and I think that sums it up.
Okay.
So,
Thanks.
so in conclusion, we'd like to ask the board for comments focused on the changes that we've made, given that it's already received compatibility findings. We've eliminated the modification. We've reduced the unit sizes. The two-bedroom units are all less than 1,700 square feet, and each of the one-bedroom units are less than 1,000 square feet. We've added additional architectural detail. We've reduced the building and paving coverage and increased the landscape coverage and significant trees, and maintained the 20% open space. And now we have a smaller project with more landscaping and more architectural detail.
Okay, so I have a few public requests to speak here, and if I could ask you to be concise with your comments and stick to 2 minutes each, that would be great, so everyone can have a chance to speak. So I'd start with Judy Lawrence, followed by Steve House. Judy Lawrence. And who are you, sorry?
I'm Susan Thompson. I didn't fill out
You-
a form,
No?
speaking. But if I can just give her my time. She's speaking on behalf of the I have a written statement.
We're still going to give everybody the 2 minutes. Who's next?
Please come ahead and start, please.
Ask, did you get our written materials that we submitted?
I have one letter here from Don Sharp.
I submitted written materials by email.
Miss, if you could come up to the microphone, because we need to have you on the
Yeah.
microphone as we're speaking. Is she the first speaker?
She's not one of the speakers here.
I'll just wait my turn.
Yeah. So could we have Judy Lawrence, followed by Steve House? And that would be followed by Don Sharp.
Come up and sit at the
microphone and state your name for the record, please.
Make sure her microphone is on. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
And start.
Judy Lawrence,
Yeah.
828.
Could you speak a little closer to the mic or pull it closer to you to be fine? Thanks a lot.
Should I repeat that? Judy Lawrence, 828 Bath Street, Unit D. I did prepare remarks. It was suggested when we were at the Planning Commission that prepared remarks go smoother. If the Thompsons, and the Thompsons are in C Unit, we're the back abutting property that had the rear yard encroachment that went to the Planning Commission. If the Thompsons and Dr. Lawrence and I had been properly notified about the proposal for 825 Delavina, we would have said and are saying now that the project is much too large for the size of the property. We understand that this board expressed this opinion also, and we are wondering where these concerns are now. Because the project is too large, there is no room for adequate parking. Because parking spaces are mandated, the developer had to put parking elevators inside the buildings, hence the massive 3-story structure abutting 2-story residential properties. Since the Bath Street condos were not represented, the other budding neighbors' requests were satisfied, even though, as commercial owners, they had no legal standing. So the large buildings were moved and situated to appease those participants. Thus, the request to encroach on the rear yard setback, the only with a zone requirement, went to the Planning Commission. This request was based on an erroneous staff report which interpreted C2 zoning, which was not open to interpretation. Although we are pleased that the Planning Commission and their attorney unanimously agreed to reject this request, the Thompsons and my husband and I found it necessary to incur the cost of legal representation to play catch-up in protecting our homes. We are resolved to prevent a virtual alley and a massive 3-story building reminiscent of early Lower Manhattan to be built behind our lovely condos, whose living areas would face it. The size of the project would block out light, air, and existing amenities protected by code. In talks with the developer, we have seen that they are unable to come up with even an additional 10 feet, an obvious indication that what is planned is overbuilt. We would ask for 30-plus foot setback with a front yard parking space or spaces relocated to the rear. At the meeting, members of the Planning Commission were so opposed to front yard parking that they had the design guidelines discouraging it read into the record. We also do not consider a trellis an architectural detail, but a landscaping one. We would like the rear wall to reflect the same architectural detail that is planned for the front and sides of the project. After all, our condominium project continued its architectural detail on all 4 sides, even though 2 sides faced parking lots. We believe that a 30-plus setback would allow a very large and beautiful palm tree, an existing amenity, to continue to grow where it is. The developer has already stated that moving the palm tree will probably kill it. I thank the board for the time. We did speak with the developer, and it's still, we think, too large for what's going on in that space, the space allotted for it.
Okay.
So,
Thanks very much.
is my time over?
Yes.
Thank you.
Steve House, followed by Don Shaw.
Good afternoon. I'm Steve Howes, and given the time constraints, I'll skip the intro and say that I believe this project is way overdeveloped for the site and sets a number of bad precedents. I would like first to point out to you that the zoning ordinance requires 5 feet of planting along this property line here. I had also pointed out to the Planning Commission how the planting in the front of the parcel did not meet the zoning ordinance either. With the relocation of one of the parking spaces, they were able to solve that problem, and in so doing seemed to create another problem here. There is no real place for a vehicle to turn around here. Perhaps a very small car could, but any other car coming in here that's thinking there's a parking space back here has to get all the way back here, and if that's already occupied, it's going to have a very difficult time turning around. If these are occupied, they're going to be backing all the way out. The zoning ordinance does give the ABR purview to waive or reduce that 5-foot planting requirement, where alternative landscaping and designs are presented that result in landscaping and designs that are equally effective. I really can't say I see something else that's been presented that is the alternative to 5 feet of landscaping all along this property line. The other main precedent that is being set here is the use of vehicle lifts as an extension of the provision for tandem parking. The zoning ordinance specifically says one parking space behind the other. It does not say on top of. I think the whole zoning ordinance, which dates way back, is predicated on the assumption that cars aren't lifted with mechanical contrivances, and so there's a natural balance between the number of parking spaces required and the number and the amount of building that can be built on a site. In allowing the car lifts, it allows far more building to be built on this site than would otherwise be practical.
Could we wrap that up?
What's that?
Could we wrap that up?
I'm trying to do that. And it also drives the height of the building with a 12-foot or so first floor plate height. The third floor of this building is 3 feet higher than the third floor of this building, even though this building is uphill from this proposal. So I think it is just way overdeveloped for the site. The garbage cans are another problem I see on the plans I reviewed today. They seem to have addressed that by putting places to put the recycling bins in the landscaping, which they belong there, but then I had pointed out to the Planning Commission, my comments were forwarded to the applicant, that when people leave for work in the morning, they're going to leave their containers out so the garbage men can pick them up, which is in the way of people maneuvering here. And so they seem to have provided places in the landscaping, which reduces the landscaping area. A garbage truck cannot pull into this site. They're going to have to park in a traffic lane for all the time it takes to collect all these garbage cans and take them out to the front. And will they bring them back and put them where they belong? Probably not. I think that's just very poorly planned, and I suspect it'll probably get appealed up to council. So, just want to let you know that. Thank you.
Thank you, Don Sharp. Followed by Norm Pop.
Of a letter that I. Okay. I'm very quickly going to go over the points of this letter. First of all, I want to say that I'm not opposed to a project being developed on the site. It's a parking lot now, unkempt, and a constant nuisance for graffiti on the side of my building. During the past several ABR meetings, the adjacent neighbors, building owners, and tenants have been mostly unsuccessful in convincing you, the board, of the negative impact this project has on the immediate neighborhood. Fortunately, in December, the Planning Commission did agree with most of our concerns and returned it to you today for reconsideration of your previous positive comments. In our opinion, most of the same neighbors' concerns still exist and continue to be: number one, too many units and building coverage causing inadequate landscaping and open space; two, illegal stacked parking. The municipal code clearly states tandem parking is one vehicle behind the other. No waiver or variation from this requirement is possible per the municipal code 28.90.045B. 3, the architectural design is unchanged after this board's comments on November 16th. Several members stated that the architecture is, and I quote, too monotonous, and it was thought to be too commercial, needing residential quality. 4, one guest space in the rear yard is questionable with respect to egress and the quality of life for the residents' patio immediately adjacent. 5, my personal concern continues to be closing off of the natural and light and ventilation enjoyed by my easterly atrium in the building. 6, the required 5-foot landscape planting area, Municipal Code 28.90.050, paragraph 3, between the driveway and the neighboring residential property to the south, has been squeezed to 18 inches. While the ABR may consider a reduction in this buffer, there is no justification for this building density to reduce the required area by 75%. The municipal code requires alternative landscaping and designs that are equally effective, and I quote. And I must say that landscaping on the neighbor's property is not what the zoning ordinance had in mind when it was deemed to be 5 feet. These are but a few of my concerns about this project, and I understand the developers wanting to maximize their profit, but crowding the site with density is injurious to the neighboring properties. One board member even stated in the last meeting that the stacked parking minimizes the building footprint. This area was merely replaced by more building, evidenced by the minimal project open space. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have followed by Norm Pop, who would be followed then by Dan Elkonin. Thanks. Just before you, I just wanted to start. Don Sharp mentioned that we got some direction from Planning Commission. I don't have any direction here. Is there?
I think he's referring to the Planning Commission minutes, which
Yes.
I'd be happy to go get try to get a draft copy of those. The meeting was December 3rd, and there was, as you know, a 2-week furlough, so I'm not sure if those are finalized yet. But I can try
But
to.
the draft
rustle.
might help if we could get some kind of intent from
Okay.
them as to
Sure.
what they
I can go
wanted
get
us
that.
to do. Thanks. Okay, thanks. Proceed.
My name is Norm Pop, and I'm one of the co-owners of the project. Our meeting of the Planning Commission, we came back here at their direction to mainly, I think, address the modification which we have and the parking. It's not my understanding that they wanted to redesign the project, but there were some significant issues that they addressed, and I think that we've addressed. And hopefully we cover some of those today. I'm really excited about the project. I think this is sort of where infill housing is moving. We're trying to get less car-centric, more open space. We have continued to shrink our units, try to accommodate. We're not building, if you'll notice what's missing here, we're not building $1 million downtown units. These are, 4 of these units are workforce housing with, easy walking distance downtown. You don't need your car. 3 of the other units have work, they have work components to them. So I feel like this is where the future is, and we're excited about it. We're trying to be environmentally conscientious with the way we're landscaping. We have met with all of our neighbors. I know there's compromises, and I think one of the difficult parts for me is I don't really want to offend anyone, and yet we all have to work together. And our project has been designed around Mr. Sharp's building with our light wells, and that has restricted kind of what we can do to some extent. But we're trying our best to, I think, accommodate everyone. So we appreciate all your work on this too.
Thanks very much. So Dan Elkonin, followed by Susan Thompson, if you still want to speak.
Hi, everybody. I'm Don Elkonin. I'm owner of 817 De La Vina. I just want to make a few comments, clarification, and other ones. First is my letter to Planning Commission of the third states.
Oh, can you press the middle of there we go.
Okay.
Thanks.
Don Elkonin, project. I own the 817 De La Vina next door. First, I want to state, make it real clear that I should be shooting myself in the foot for not having this be as big as possible, since as the owner next door, I plan on developing my project at some point, and this is a precedent-setting project. As such, I've made it very clear in the record that I plan on pretty much following the lead that's set here, and I'll probably be engaging these architects because they've done quite a good job of building the hell out of this place. And I don't want them not to be able to do a project. I agree that, a vacant lot's nothing, but I want to make the following points. As you'll note, Mr. Pop just said that he just tried to define this as a fill-in project. And it's a precedent-setting project. It's not a fill-in project. It's at one end of De La Vina that spreads down from there on. And I can assure you, not just myself, but Melchior is going to just jump up and down when this is developed. And you know that his properties at the end of De La Vina and Ortega, right there next to me, will also take eye on what happens here. The walls on the south side, I'd like clarification as to what I'm assuming the south side is adjoining my property line. I'd like to see a little more detail on those. I do want to make a point it was presented that they chose to put the plantings on our property line, and the reality of the fact is that they came in unasked and broke the law and sheared 15 limbs and cut back another 15 limbs on the Coney Island pine in the front of my property, and in lieu of a suit against them, agreed to do certain things for me on my project. And now they're trying to say that they're of their own volition doing this. They're trying to use what they're doing on my property as their landscaping need. I appreciate that we've come to an understanding, and I will live with it, but I want to make that clear. I'm also curious about the trees that are shown on the south side, and it looks like at least two of them are right above the roofs of my two buildings. And as such, I'm not sure what the leaves are and what they're going to drop there, and whether that's the most judicious placement of those trees. I had not seen where the trash was. I now, in listening, have heard where I guess it is proposed, but I tend to agree that the trash might be something that you would want to take a focus on and maybe improve upon. I agree also about the lifts, these lift parking. If you look at them in detail, and you'll see that it's between 4'6" and under 5 feet is the height of the upper lift. Not many cars can comply with that height, and you and I all know that what's going to end up happening there is that's going to be storage. And one car is going to be used for each of those spaces. And as such, parking, which is already difficult on De La Vina, is going to be impacted even more. And I just reiterate, it's a cute idea, but, you know, it would be nice if, in return for getting something like that, there was more landscaping and other things that benefited the property in ways other than building. All that's done is that increased building is what's taken place because of them. So there's no give and take. And I agree also that it looks to be a problem in terms of a car coming in here and what happens when this is filled and how this car even is able to easily get out. So I certainly would much appreciate it if you in your capacities took a really good look at this project. And I think a project deserves to be here and a good project, but I share the others' belief that it's just way over the top. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Susan Thompson?
I didn't plan on speaking because I thought I had submitted written materials, but apparently they didn't get distributed. Okay. Would it be okay if I circulated these photos, which I thought I emailed? These are 3 photos taken from the inside of my home, inside each of the living areas of my home, the living room, the dining room, and the bedroom. And one thing that the board needs to take into consideration in determining the appropriate setback for, in this case, it's, even though you're thinking of it as a rear setback, that's actually our front yard. It's the entire orientation of our house. And the design guidelines, and I believe the ordinance requires that you take into consideration the orientation of the home in determining the appropriate setback. The other thing, I wish that my written materials had been submitted to you, but I would encourage, I think there was a lot of direction provided by the planning commissioners at the planning commission meeting, and I would encourage you, if you have access to it, to review the letter that our attorney submitted, which is very detailed and explains the support for our position. Thank you.
Thank you. So, you, staff, you have a...
Just wanted to acknowledge a letter from Ms. Paula Westbury.
Okay, thanks. Seeing no others, I will close that public comment.
I did get a copy of the minutes. Do you want me to hand them to you, or do you want me to just read through them?
Maybe you can tell us what the design guidance is from PC.
Yes. Just to summarize, let's see. Commissioner Jacobs, Thompson, and White said that they cannot make the finding for the consistency with the zoning ordinance for the rear yard setback. They did not see it as a necessary modification for a lot that is currently empty, and they cannot support the tentative subdivision map since it would necessitate the modification. The overall bulk and scale, parking, and plate heights would need reconsideration. Commissioners Jacobs and Thompson could not support parking in the front yard setback. The majority of the commission could not make the findings but would support a continuation for the project to be redesigned and allow for the elimination of a modification. Commissioner Bartlett could support a modification. Commissioner White remained concerned with the tandem parking and the resulting intensity of the project. He questioned the status of the existing live-work projects and whether or not they have been successful in maintaining commercial space. Commissioners Justice and Lodge felt that the applicant had done a good job on the project. Given the location, Commissioner Justice supported a live-work project, but he wants to see it balanced with the neighborhood. Commissioner Lodge suggested making the light well a larger forward light well by taking away some square footage. She liked the setbacks in the front and suggested one parking space in the front, using the rest for landscaping, and the other parking space in the back, creating a larger setback. Let's see. And then they had a discussion of live-work, the concept of live-work units, and asked staff to look into previous projects to make sure that they were actually being used as live-work. Let's see. And as far as design comments to the board, those were the ones that they were talking about.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Close that public comment and PC comments and bring it back to the board for questions. Just before questions, if you could just answer some items that the public asked about, and which is the width of this landscaping portion on your site plan.
The width of the planting is 18 inches, as was stated, but we also have cutouts approved by transportation to allow for backup, and that's how we get the tree pockets in there. Because you can't, they're right here. They were same as on the old plan, too. They're just not showing up architecturally. But
So they're not on this landscape, on this site plan?
no. It's just a coordination issue. It's not, it's what we've always shown. We showed it, the same concept here. So it's not like it hasn't gone away. We've always had the concept, which is the only way we could get the trees in there.
Okay, and these two trees that the neighbor discussed, is that this Japanese maple?
No.
What are those
We haven't picked the tree yet, but it more than likely will be this property line tree, which is a small canopy tree. And here are the buildings that we're concerned with. They're sheds, and they will, fall off. And
Is this a shedding tree? Is that
no,
no, it doesn't shed.
No. It doesn't drop its leaves.
It does drop its leaves. Yeah.
No, it does not. But any tree will drop a leaf now and then.
All right. Okay, so bring back to the board for comments, Gary. For questions.
Well, yeah, I do have one. I do see some dotted lines with the trash cans. Were you planning on having the trash cans in the landscaped area?
No.
I'm sorry, there's... Can you point here when you talk?
Yeah. There's allocation for the trash receptacles in the garage and the one-bedroom units, and then common for the two-bedroom.
So, common trash areas here.
And so those are, Lori said those are stepping stones then?
They're step stones,
correct.
Yeah.
Is that it, Gary?
That's it.
That's it.
Move
Dawn?
on.
I had a question for, I was not at the last meeting, so I apologize. I had a question for transportation, actually.
I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that we have Chelsea Swanson.
Yeah, I noticed her in the audience, so I have a question for her about the staff's interpretation of the municipal code for tandem parking. If we could get...
Sure. Chelsea Swanson with Transportation Planning. As Mr. House and Mr. Sharp pointed out, this came up at Planning Commission. There's a section of the code, 2890-45-4, I believe, which speaks to tandem parking and that it's allowed in mixed-use developments. And they were questioning the language of that section of the code, which says one car behind the other, probably because I pointed out there were no such thing as lifts at the time it was written. And There's also another section of the ordinance, 2890-45-2, which talks about waivers for maneuvering, which precedes that section, which says that you have to get in and out of a space in one maneuver, and that staff, a waiver to those design standards can happen. We've had other projects with lifts, not many, but if you recall, 320 East Victoria is a residential condo project. So that's how it wasn't actually looking to the mixed use section of the the Tandem section of the code that says it's allowed in mixed use. It was looking to the section of the code that says a waiver can be granted for something other than what the standards say.
For maneuvering or for actual
that's the way
positioning of parked cars?
Well, it's been interpreted to both maneuvers, to the stacked design. The way that transportation looks at the stacked versus one car behind the other, the maneuvering to us is the same, that you have to get one car out of the way to get to the other car. And and that's what we look at. We don't look at how it affects the building or anything like that. So the maneuvering itself was supportable from our standpoint. And even if we were to apply this section of the ordinance, which I guess our city attorney said, go here, not here. Don't look at the section that says tandem. But to us, it's the same thing. The maneuvering is the same. And so we could get there even if we were to look at that section that says you can allow this in mixed use, which this project is. So hopefully that explains sort of where we are. So
and there have been other projects approved with lift parking that have already set a precedence. This is not
this is not the first. There is like I mentioned, 320 East Victoria is a residential condominium project that lifts were approved. Other projects, I believe 101 East Victoria, which is I think all commercial, so it's a little different. I'm not sure if we've had them in mixed use yet, but yes, we have reviewed and approved other projects. So that's my understanding of it.
Okay, thanks, Chelsea. And then my other question was the 5-foot landscaping strip is that applies to all setbacks, not just the front, right? But we could provide. We're allowed to grant a waiver if we feel it's appropriate, right, Michelle? But it technically applies to all the setbacks, not just the front, the 5-foot landscaping strip. Is it for side interior yard setbacks as well? The 5-foot, unless we can grant a waiver or find the means to grant a waiver, then it applies. It's supposed to apply to all setbacks.
To C2.
Yeah.
Oh, there aren't setbacks.
C2.
Okay.
So it's just because it's adjacent to.
Okay. All right, I get it. And then my last question has to do with a discrepancy that I think is in the minutes to the last meeting, and that is I wasn't here, but you guys study the north side elevation of the second and third floor for additional massing relief. And then down below, you've stated that the project is consistent with compatibility. And C, you wrote the project's mass, size, bulk, height, and scale are appropriate. So it just seemed like a contradiction. And to me, it seems like where we are today is looking at the appropriateness of the mass, bulk, and scale, and whether or not the applicant has satisfied number 4 of those minutes. And I'm still not clear. It wasn't clear to me. I guess part 2 of that question is it wasn't clear to me how that was addressed exactly, since I wasn't here.
We addressed that by removing those shed roofs along those bays and by dropping the plate height of the bays to relieve some of the mass and to drop.
So the shed roof was changed to a flat roof.
Correct.
And the second part was
these plates also were dropped to give.
By how much?
believe it was 6 inches. I believe it was
6 inches.
Yeah, 7/6 plate instead of the 8-inch plate to give it a break from the plate behind.
I'm not sure. You're saying you lowered this ceiling height by
Correct.
6 inches?
Correct.
And what is the ceiling height now?
I believe it's 7/6 over the kitchen area.
So 7 feet 6 in the kitchen area, but it's a different height in the other area?
Correct. It's just the bay that pops out.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I have one more question.
Go
I
right
just thought
ahead.
of
Yep.
my last question. I promise. The item number 3 of the minute stated, study the architectural starkness and provide additional detailing of the proposed design style. What would you call this design style?
I would say it's similar to Irving Gill
Okay.
style. That's what we were shooting for when we were looking. Irving Gill.
Do you have examples of? I mean, I remember you presenting those before, if I'm not mistaken. But do you have those with you? Are they still in the file? The examples of the Irving Gill architectural style that they were proposing, so that we could re-review that.
Yeah.
There were you guys brought photos, I thought, of examples.
Yes. On
Are they
previous
in
set
our
of plans,
file?
we had sheets. They should.
They had. Okay. Yeah, I'd like to see that. Thanks, Kelly. That's it for me. Thanks.
Okay. Paul, questions?
Most of my questions were already answered. Just to refresh my memory, in the back of the property where there was a mod, what was the setback, and now it's 16?
It was 10 feet previously.
Okay,
and
so
now
the whole
it's 16.
now it's
and the third floor was previously around 28 feet, and now it's nearly 34.
Was 28?
Yes.
And now 34. And then on this side,
This is the same diagramming the same section, but just referencing the residential solar axis, which does not apply to the project, just showing that we do comply even to that.
So do you have a section going through this elevation so I can see, because this is an open parking lot on the back of the next door neighbor. Do you have a section right through there? What's happening there?
This would be, what you're looking for, this is the interior elevation, which show you the relationship here.
But I'm looking at the back side of this building, way back there, a section of it.
Currently, I don't have a section.
I guess, all right. What I'm wondering is, did the third floor and that back building move further away from the property line, or is it still where it was?
Adjacent to which property?
If we go to the site plan or the third floor plan, either one. Right. But did they move this more than... Was there some movement since the last time the project was here? The rear building, these three elements here, has this...
Relationship to this property?
Yes. Has that moved anything since the last time the project was here?
No.
Okay. Okay, I believe there was a request.
We can check the old set.
Okay, so then the change that was made was that the plate height here was dropped 6 inches at the kitchen, which was on the second floor.
Right.
That's what was done at the northwest back corner.
And you also added architectural detailing.
Correct.
Yeah.
And also added.
Okay. Oops, sorry about that. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Wade?
I have one question, and just for the record, I just want to make sure there's no mods requested on this project anymore. Is that correct?
Correct. There are no modifications requested for this project.
What is your footprint to lot area ratio? Your cover sheet says 35%, but doesn't look like that's accurate.
Is this down here?
Utilizing,
Paving is 38%, landscape coverage 28%, 35% building coverage.
That's
correct. That's been
exterior
updated.
walls all the way around the
Yep.
footprint of the building. And my next question, what's the depth of the 2 light wells? It might be a question for Mr. Sharp on the adjacent commercial building.
It goes into his case?
It's solar.
Don, you want to come up and
The westerly light well is 5 feet deep, and the easterly light well has a balcony that is roughly 12 to 15 feet deep on the second floor, 5 feet on the first floor.
and the easterly is the one closest to De La Vina?
Yes.
Just for other
Yes.
people listening.
I have no problem with the light well in the west. That's overlooking their required open space.
Is that a diagram that shows that?
It is.
That's all my questions.
Okay, Carol?
Kelly. So there are no setbacks on this property, right?
There are setbacks in the rear. That it's required. I think it's 10 feet or a third of the building height. I have to look at it, and they're providing a 16-foot setback at the rear of the building now.
Okay, so did I mishear when you were reading the commissioner's comment? You said there were 2 commissioners, this was in the first part of it, that said that they could not support parking in the front setback. But actually, we don't have a front setback.
That's correct, and I don't know if they just meant that area of the property, because technically there are no front yard setbacks, so I think they just meant...
And when the commissioners had a discussion that they wanted the plate heights reduced, did you get a sense that 6 inches in the kitchen area would satisfy them? Within that discussion, were they talking about really what their expectations were about reducing the plate heights?
They didn't state anything specific.
Okay, but the intent of that was to bring down the overall height, or, I mean...
My understanding was that they were looking at if they eliminated the mod, how would that change the building without raising the height of the building too much? So they didn't want to see the building go up higher than what it already was. That's my...
Correction to what Kelly said. The zone...
I'm
sorry, but you can't talk from there if you'd like to. You know, we've closed public comment.
It's just a correction. When the question... Judy Lawrence. When the question was asked about the zoning for the setback, the rear setback, it is 10 feet or half the building height, not 1/3 of the building height. Half.
I apologize for that. I didn't have your minutes.
Okay, I did. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
So I'm just trying to understand the commissioner's sense of this project, Kelly. Kelly, I'm trying to get a sense of, because when you read their comments, I got a sense that there really wasn't a lot of support. And I'm just trying to really understand, without having a commissioner here that could speak on behalf of the commission, which it probably would have been good if we could have gotten one person. But was there support? I mean, overall, because some of the comments that I heard was that they could not support this project. That they were looking
I
for...
felt like they supported
a
a mixed-use project, but they really had a hard time supporting the modification.
That was their...
That was
the
and I can't speak for them, obviously.
And architecture, or... I mean, they were seeking a significant redesign, minor redesign?
I'm sorry, I can't tell you more than what's in the actual minutes. I can't speak for the commission. You know, I would be interpreting what they said other than what's in the minutes, and I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that.
And what was their general comment about the waiver for the 5-foot landscape? Did that come up in discussion?
Mr. Chair. That did not come up in the discussion, and they didn't discuss that part of it.
Okay. Okay. So,
Just for clarification, it is a C2 zone, so there is no setback required there.
right, okay.
Carol,
Okay, and
we're running late right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, no, Jim, where the so where are the mailboxes located?
Typing? No?
The mail, I believe, is located on the, I think it was at each unit.
At each
At
unit?
each unit?
Yes.
Like next to the front door where the landscaping is?
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
No, I think, sorry, we're running very late, we're behind, and we haven't even got through all of our stuff yet, so, sorry.
Regarding the planning commission.
I'm sorry, yeah. Carol, anymore? Okay, I have, okay, go ahead, Dawn, you have a question.
Yeah, I just couldn't read something on the north elevation. If you could turn to the north elevation. I'm not understanding the mass above the... I'm not understanding this mass right here. Here and here.
That is Don Sharp's building. That is the adjacent building.
It's a zero lot line.
This is zero lot line building. So
I thought this
So
was
that
the
is-
north elevation of your project.
it is.
This going.
Okay,
So this
but
bumps up
I know, I understand, but you're showing the light well through here and here, but then you're showing that what you're showing by showing this mass here is that your building abuts it. But if you look at the floor plan, it doesn't.
This is
So
Don Sharp's building. It's not their building.
no, I know, but it seems like Don Sharp's building.
I guess what you say, if I could help you, I guess what we were looking for is the outline of your building, and then you can dash in the dash line of his. But obviously, your building does not take the exact shape like that. So you need to show where the shape of your building is, and then you can dash this in to say that that's in the foreground or something.
I mean, this should stay the south elevation of the adjacent property instead of your north elevation.
I don't know if it's
Because yours goes
clarified.
like
This
this.
is-
Yours goes like this, you see,
Right.
down here. But his is like that. So we're not looking at what his one is. We'd like to know what yours is.
I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't, if I look at that, it looks like there should be some kind of mass against here, and you're just telling me that that isn't the case. Okay, good. Have you done a solar analysis through
Yes,
this light
even
well?
though it's a residential analysis. This is the residential solar ordinance.
For that light well?
Yes.
Have you seen this? Just wanted to. Okay, thank you.
This actually drops down much further than you see here.
Okay,
And I don't have a copy of that. I've never been offered one.
okay. Thanks.
Okay. I had some questions. These first items here, study the architectural starkness of the project, study the north side elevation of the second and third floor for additional massing relief. If I recall correctly, when I made those statements, is that what I was referring to, and I could see here, is that the front and south sides of your building take on a certain architectural style, whether it's this style here, this one, or this one here that has the overhanging, those little covers that you have on the awnings. And you can see that that's a style that you're using on both those elevations. And yet, when you turn the building here, this looks like a completely different building to me. And that's what I made a point of at the last time, and I'm asking you here, how did you address that from the last time? And I think all I've heard so far is that these little things here have been dropped 6 inches.
We've also extended the roof slightly, a slight overhang to create a shadow line, and added some more trim to increase shadow lines, as well as, it tends to replicate the feel of the third floor here.
Okay. All right. And really, that's all my questions. Okay. Gary, comments? Yeah.
Do we have a chance to respond to any of the comments that were made or not? No?
Yeah.
We haven't made any comments. No, I meant the, from the public, the misstatements, no.
Do you have something significant to? Let's wait till we finish here and then I'll. Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First off, I appreciate that the planter space got quite a bit wider in the front, and I think that's the type of things that really head the project in the right direction. I'm still not sold on the architectural style. I don't see the exact connection between the Horatio Irving style that you proposed or the precedents that the buildings that you showed us, and I'm not seeing a comparable architectural element in this building. I don't think that the addition of the trellises are cutting it as far as architectural elements go. As far as massing goes, I still see areas that massing could be reduced and that there's potential waste when just because the areas of the lift of the garage does not mean that the entire first floor needs to be at that elevation. And there are areas in the back where the kitchen areas and the dining room areas and the bedrooms that are on one portion of the buildings, they could be dropped down substantially. And not only will dropping down those sections, it will give more articulation to this building, and I think it'll give it a more unique look. So I think there's study on not necessarily overall reduction of the building, but reduction of some of the mass to bring it down. I'm okay with the tandem parking idea, with the idea of the lift inside the garage. I'm okay for density to get that in, and I'm okay for having more building space, more units in it. But I'm not okay with losing a lot of landscaping. And I appreciate the efforts that we made to get landscaping, but I would like to see a little bit more landscaping at the planter. I would like to see a little less hardscape, and I appreciate the moves for the grasscrete, but I still would like to see some other elements of landscaping. Where I kind of feel like the trees that are coming over the property lines, over the buildings, is kind of glorifying what's actually going to happen, because one side of those trees could get chopped off, and I still think that there may be some elements of areas that we can have that. I would be concerned about these, adding little stepping stones in areas where there's landscaping. Those things take away the minuscule amount that we have already. So those are some of my basic comments, and we'll see where we go from there.
Thanks. Dawn?
All right. I think that the detailing needs to be more worked out as far as just architectural style and articulation of the detailing to illustrate the style that you're talking about with the Irving Gill style. I'm seeing places where it's going to be difficult to achieve some of the detailing at the garage door jambs and things like that, where you have less than a foot to deal with on a column and places like that. And I can appreciate that up until this point you didn't feel comfortable doing that, but since it was asked for in the last minutes, and I'm not sure we're getting more than from the last meeting. So now's the time to do that, I think. Because right now for me, it's not quite there. I think you could probably, as Gary mentioned, get a little bit more reduction in the massing slightly. I don't have a problem with the bedroom on the third story that you're adding, but I think now's the time to work out some of those details, walking yourself through the space and saying, is this really going to work? How are we going to handle this detail? How are these trellises going to work into this project? And to convince me that this is appropriate. And I have to somewhat agree with Chris's comment about the detailing kind of not being carried all the way through on all four sides as much as it could be. So I'd be looking for that. And again, just I agree with Gary on additional landscaping along the south property line, and I appreciate the work that you guys have done so far. It looks like you're really trying to work with what you have, and with the neighbors, and being sensitive to those light wells. It looks like you have, especially the west one, and by not putting a third story in front of the east one. So.
Is that it? Paul? Can you flip over one sheet?
Sure.
Just to have that elevation. I appreciate the not needing any more mods and actually pulling the building back 6 feet. That was a good move. I don't have a problem with this project as a whole. I think it's moving in the right direction. There's a couple things that haven't been addressed yet, and I believe that the view from the northwest, this whole elevation, is painful. And before it was just, it needs some work, please study, but now please study wasn't strong enough, so it's painful. The third floor has a very hard edge. There's just a little cutout where the stairwell happens. Something needs to happen here. Perhaps there's some more movement. You can move it back. But there's not romance or character that exists in other portions of your building. So this needs help. And this side moved back another 6 feet, so the view from the neighbor's window that she provided for us, that whole building moved back 6 feet, which is nice. Here, there's some help needed. My personal comment about the parking lifts is that if the city is going to allow it, then that's the city's decision. We design a building around it. And if it gets appealed to the Planning Commission or to the City Council because of the parking lifts, then this will be the test case that resolves whether or not that's allowed. Architectural detailing, I do believe this little bump out on the third floor is going the wrong direction. That's not the detailing. It actually brings attention to it and made it taller or higher, bigger, more prominent. Looking at some of the pictures, I think that was not a good choice for that resolution. There was a comment where we had only a little bit of red tile, and so the choice was either have no red tile or incorporate other areas where you could have red tile. So I'm going to suggest to study areas of adding red tile to try to soften some of the roof and to bring a little another color in, or somehow get rid of some of the inherent boxiness, perhaps. That's just as a suggestion of maybe a way of correcting or working on this one elevation. I appreciate changing the scale of the paving pattern. I noticed that. I appreciate that. Anyway, just the paving area should just be the bare bone minimum needed for backing out, and then the rest of it be landscaping. And that's all my comments. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Clay?
Mr. Chair, unfortunately this project is one that seems to meet all the regulations, but people around the project have a hard time with it, and that happens so often in the downtown part of the city. But I made a couple notes of things, some things were said on the board. We're talking about tandem versus, we keep talking about tandem, and I don't think that stackers could be defined as tandem nor construed as tandem, because the definition of tandem is clear, one car behind the other. I understand transportation's waiver on the maneuverability, but that's a whole separate issue. I'm still a believer that the stackers on this project are a very valuable idea, and when I look at the building footprint of 35% of lot coverage, with landscaping being 28% and permeable drive surface with plantings in it being another percentage of that, I start to come back from the argument a little bit that this is too massive for the site. I'm not seeing it. We have a 3-story building that's not even 31 feet tall, and we're in the downtown. We're in a downtown urban environment. And this is what, I mean, whether you agree with me or not, it is downtown, and it is an urban environment, and it is a C2 zone. And projects like this, if they're done responsibly and designed well with important things considered, should be, and comply with the zoning ordinance, should be allowed to be built. I think that the applicant has addressed the light wells fairly substantially. I know that there's always going to be an argument how much is enough, and there's a compromise there, but I've been fairly satisfied from day one on how the light wells have been treated for the adjacent property. I'm not sure that those light wells could be approved today under the current building codes as they are today. I'm not sure. I can't answer that because I don't know. I haven't been to the building and walked inside and seen those and understand the construction. But my sense is that it would be a little bit more difficult to get that passed today. However, the applicant has done some pretty extensive design work to try to address that as best as they can. I don't see this as an overbuilt site in its entirety. I think that there's areas of the site, though, that could be designed and massaged, and that's part of this process. But if we're going to if ABR is going to get into land use issues, then I think we're starting to get into trouble. I think we should focus on the design issues and the things that are inherent to the aesthetics of the building and how it works on the site and the site planning efforts. That being said, I'm still concerned about the northwest, I guess, elevation, as was brought up by some members. Overall, I think that the Irving Gill style on this site can work. De La Vina is a hodgepodge of different architectural styles. There's no one thread running through from block to block. And there's examples of really great architecture down the street, and there's examples of not so great architecture on that street. I think if the applicant wants to go the Irving Gill style, I think it can hold water on this location. I think it needs to be done sensitively, and I think it's not there yet. And I've voiced that opinion in the past, and I'll continue to voice it until those issues get addressed. I'm comfortable with this project moving forward. I would be questioning the trees on the property line overhanging the neighbors, as well as the adjacent commercial buildings trees growing out onto this property. Those are concerns. There needs to be some agreement or something between the neighbors that's cordial and that allows those trees to grow and flourish if in fact they're going to remain. I also believe that the parking or the landscape strip on the south side of the property line, I don't think it has to be 5 feet proper, but I think 18 inches is too narrow. And mostly where I think it's too narrow is where the two buildings next door are right near the property line. I don't know that they're on the property line, but they're very close. I definitely appreciate the changes to the rear setback and removing the modification, and I appreciate the changes to the front of the project, reducing the parking from 2 to 1. If transportation and planning staff are supportive of turnaround space and backing up and access and maneuverability and all the other land use issues, then let's talk about architecture and landscape. And it's been stated that this project will probably be appealed, and we'll just go through the process.
Thanks, Clay. Carol?
Okay, trying to get this thing on. Let's see, could you turn to 3.1 and I'll make my comments up there. So if the camera could kind of shoot down. All right, I agree with almost everything that I heard my colleagues say. So I'm just going to focus on a couple landscape issues that I see happening. If you can move that a little bit to the left so I could get this in here. Okay, one thing that I think is successful landscape planning-wise, I'm going to increase that, is that, okay, one thing that I see, which is a plus, is that as somebody is traveling down De La Vina, if this is the apron of the driveway, they're actually not looking down a long void, to something blank, which in some projects we see. We are, in fact, looking at architecture. But the issue kind of comes in is so what I see here is that there's a walkway here, so you come into the side there, that's this opening, and this opening is representing that opening, correct? Correct. Right. So what we have here in reality is from the street all the way to the architecture is hardscape, is flat. We don't have an opportunity to landscape and screen and soften the corner of this building because, in fact, that's a walkway coming in. We can't, soften anything on either side of the opening here because that's part of the driveway. And so I asked myself, that's really a huge missed opportunity to soften a corner and a height that I think is really fairly significant. And so my one comment is, do we really need the access into the side? Maybe it actually is better to leave this walkway here and allow somebody to just walk this way. Then you have a pretty significant landscape opportunity to get, some height here that's really going to help to soften that and visually, balance out this entrance, which is almost like dead center to the driveway. The other thing is I think there's a lot of missed opportunities to make the trees in the driveway, the land available, bigger. For instance, and I just kind of used my fingers, I didn't do anything more, but when I looked at, especially down here, when I looked at how a car really pulls back, so if a car pulls, straight back, he still has, all this opportunity here. No, you're saying. No. Okay, so you studied that and you found
turning radiuses.
No.
We've gone over
okay.
The transportation's turning
okay.
radius.
Okay. That's okay. Then this really does bring up a dilemma in my mind, is because what I heard from several of my colleagues is it is a problem in planning to plant a tree inches away from a property line because the health and the integrity of that tree is really compromised from the very beginning. Legally, they could shear that right at the property line, although we have the property owner here saying he is supportive of some of these aspects. It's really not good planning. It's not good planning to plant something that has such a weighted significance to satisfy a landscape requirement, knowing that it may be killed in the process. So, and this is very problematic. First of all, this isn't a high fire area, but this really violates good fire planning. We don't ever want to put a canopy right on top of a structure like that. So I cannot support these two just because I really think that this is compromising a lot in these two structures. Your answer when Chris in his question said, does these trees drop their leaves? And the answer was they're not deciduous. They don't drop their leaves like one time, but they do drop leaves all through the year. You said that. Okay, well, I guess I just want to reinforce that I'm not in favor of really doing that to the neighbors' structures. I think that there is an inherent problem in coming up with that as the best solution. I have a little concern if we're coming back to this elevation, because I am really focused now on what is the community seeing. Okay, we have a beautiful podocarpus street tree that probably is this tree represented. Okay, in the pictures, that's a fine specimen, and I'm just happy that we at least have that available. But we have a very tiny, and we don't have a picture of it, but Lori has stated that it's a very, very small podocarpus. And it was newly planted. And although we don't have a picture, she had stated it's really little. But this is the third story elevation. This is where we really need a nice investment of a canopy in here.
Well, I've added 2 trees there.
Okay, but that's
Separate
not
from-
doing it, and let me explain why. How you stated your planning of that is that you are introducing 2 smaller trees.
No, that's not what I intended. So, I mean...
Where they're always underneath the canopy.
No, that was only for, that's not for here. The smaller trees under the canopy. Yeah, over here. These are canopy trees.
Okay.
These are lower. These are not. This is going to be the missed opportunity.
Okay, so that's fine. Because what we really need is the height there. I mean, we really need height.
And I have nothing to do with street trees either. It's not, I mean, that's an existing street tree, so.
Right, but I wonder if we have an opportunity to actually add another box street tree here.
Well, I'd rather do it on the property and make it part of this palette.
Okay, okay.
Because I don't really want to add another podocarpus because...
Okay, okay.
That attractive.
Okay, so, and then I'll just make it my final comment. Your answer to my question about where are the mailboxes, I think you really have to study that because...
They're not in the planted areas.
No, I understand that. Let me make my comments, please. If you want to have them next to the front doors, which is what you said you want, there could be an opportunity of recessing them flush and using a few inches inside the garage so they're not sticking out and it's not sort of a hazard of somebody walking through. Because my concern is they're going to be introduced maybe in the landscaping here or on the wall that then has stepping stones taking away landscaping in order for the mailman to access it. So since every inch of landscaping is now a really super critical issue, I'd really like you to, next time you come back, is to really give us well thought out solutions of all of these little issues. Understood?
Understood.
And so you're saying that when you studied the very minimum hardscape for these cars to turn back and navigate, you've really come up with that as the very maximum.
That's what was allowed by transportation.
Okay. Well, then
they gave us as much as they could give us.
my comment is that that's just marginally satisfying, and I'm not 100% sure that that is, since it does require a waiver, I think that we have to get a little bit more landscaping in there somehow.
It doesn't require a waiver.
Well, it's 5 feet minus...
That, I don't know where that misstatement came from, the 5 foot, that,
All right.
no.
Yeah, it's a
That's
zero
not-
lot line.
Okay.
It's got nothing to do with that.
So, okay, Lauren, I'm going to wrap up my comments before we make the motion, but I'd like to give you 1 minute to just quickly answer the things that you wanted to say. So at least you get an opportunity to say quickly.
Okay, so one was the 5 foot buffer setback. I didn't know where that was coming from. Two, the Phoenix canariensis that's going to be moved won't die because it'll be bought and replanted. Yeah, mainly it's the 18 inches, and then the 0 lot line building. This is a 0 lot line building, and that's
okay.
You can build up against it. And the neighbors plant, and about the trees, the neighbors' plantings are all overhanging on this property. The owner is not cutting down the property. I don't find the I mean, isn't cutting down their trees. So
yeah, I think we understand that one. Lauren, quickly.
I'd just like to say that this is a C2 zone and that we're providing 27% landscaping, 20% open space, and 35% building coverage. So I think for this zone, for a transitional zone, I think we're achieving all the goals and trying to work with each of our neighbors. So thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, I want to say I think that the project is maturing. I'm very happy that you don't have the modification anymore. I think that you've taken some of the comments to heart and you've done some work. I just think that the project needs a little bit more work, and in the areas that I think for some of the comments that Paul made, I think you need to bring us some sections with all the plate heights and stuff like that. Some questions that you may have shown us already in the past, but it's not documented here. It's hard for us to remember all of the things, and for us to be confident about making a decision, we need to have it here also. I'd like to get the PC comments before this comes back again, so that we could be very confident of where we act.
There hasn't been but one planning commission meeting since December 3rd.
Yeah,
so
I know it's kind of
it's a little
difficult. It's
hard.
in a bind, but if it
we
would,
will have them by the
we would
next
just
one.
have a little bit more confidence. I'd like you to attend to the mailboxes and see what would be the best solution. I think that the key thing for me is I think that the project can exist in this part of the neighborhood. I however think that you have a design massaging problem to attend to. The key thing for me is you don't have a cohesive design throughout all elevations of the project. And especially this northeast elevation for me is particularly important, and not only just here, but a little bit of corner from here. And it's almost like two separate buildings, like they just don't exist. And it's like you max this out, and you're just not giving it the consideration that you've given here. Now, it could be that you're just trying to get up to the property line tight here as much as you can, but you have to architecturally find a way to make these things cohesive, whether it's elements that you add here and then you repeat them there or whatever. I don't want to tie you down to how you do it, but you have to find a way to make that more cohesive. And I think that the lack of doing that is making this feel more massive than it needs to appear. And I think that that's what's holding a lot of people back in being able to jump to the next step to have you move forward. Okay? All right. With that, I'd like to open it up for a motion. I see, Dawn, you were taking a lot of good notes there. So if you could.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion for indefinite continuance back to the full board.
Yes.
With the following comments: to carry forward number 3 of the last meeting, which is to provide for an integrated design. And that, actually, I just wanted to say carry forward number 3 and provide an integrated design at all 4 elevations. Remove the overhang on the 3rd level, as it does not seem to represent the proposed style. Consider additional planting at the front southeast elevation, and possibly removing the southern arch entrance as an entrance. Confirm with transportation to maximize the landscaping potential at the south property line. And how do I word this? Study an appropriate design for integration of trees on the south property line. Consider an appropriate solution to the mailboxes. And that's my motion.
Do I have a second for that?
I'll second that.
We have a second. Under discussion?
Under discussion, 2 other items to add if it's okay with the maker of the motion. One is to provide building sections with plate heights noted and property lines. And the other item is the board is looking for the exposed northwest elevation to be redesigned to be less massive in keeping with the architectural style.
I'm okay with that. I think that last item could be a part of the very first.
That's fine.
That would be the part of number 1 with the comment about integrating all 4 elevations into the proposed style. But yeah, I'm okay with that.
Great. Any other things under discussion?
Under discussion, are we confused at whether there's a 5-foot landscape buffer required or not? Kelly, could you make a statement of how we should look at that?
The ordinance states, perimeter planters, where such parking areas and/or driveways abut a street, a planting area at least 5 feet in depth shall be provided. So this is not abutting a street. Well, I was going to keep reading. reading. Sorry. I'm just going to keep reading. Just give me a second. An ornamental wall or fence 3 1/2 feet in height shall be provided, except if the planting area is 8 feet or greater in depth and suitable screen planting is provided. The ornamental fence or wall may be omitted. Where parking areas or driveways abut a neighboring building or a property line not adjoining a street, a planting area at least 5 feet in depth shall be provided. The ABR or the HLC may reduce or waive the requirement regarding the 5-foot planting area where alternative landscaping and designs are presented that result in landscaping and designs that are equally effective.
Okay, so I'm interpreting that as, in fact, we are looking at a 5-foot required strip along the driveway. Is that yours as the case planner's interpretation of that?
What'd you say?
It's along the neighboring property line
Right.
going down, not along.
So that the south side along the driveway. Okay.
Unless we did a waiver.
Well, I don't know how. I'm just going to throw out an addition to your motion, and other members could refine it. The 18-inch proposed planting strip is too minimal of a planting opportunity, and the applicant is encouraged to find ways of increasing that wherever possible.
Yeah, Kathy, I think that it's safe to say that the board feels that the 18-inch as proposed is inadequate. So that should be added to that item about that landscaping strip.
Okay. Okay. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I'm going to be against the motion.
Against? We have one against.
One opposed, Kathy.
Kathleen, we have one opposed.
One opposed? Okay.
One opposed, yes. Yes, fine, thanks. Okay, we are about 40 minutes behind. Number 2, 535 East Montecito Street.
And I agree that's an opportunity for more landscaping, but that takes away one of the best characters of that front elevation.
It could be an arch without a walkway, though.
It could be an arch without a walkway.
Could be.
You pass that down.
I'm going to tell that to Keith. Just wanted to make Carol happy by adding that comment
Hello?
about increased landscaping.
No, I think we're... Kathleen, are we going... We're going through, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're number 2, 535 East Montecito Street. Yeah. We're not ready for a break yet. Yeah, we should be, but we got a long ways to go.
You can take a couple of things. I want to keep one
I'm not all that happy about trees.
Yeah. $535 East Montecito, Housing Authority. Okay, while the applicant is setting up, I'll read the last minutes. Continued indefinitely to full board. Applicant is to return with complete submittal per the standard ABR requirements to include a complete site plan and elevations. Provide an appropriate scale and green for proposed building blocks. Provide pedestrian connectivity between the project's open spaces. Provide acknowledgement to site conditions at the edges of the property. Solar orientation to the open spaces. Provide human scale and vehicular circulation plans provide multi-entry points for pedestrian and vehicle circulation points, provide orientation to public streets and the public face of the project, address the building along the north property line and how the proposed project abuts these areas. One board member requested the applicant to reconsider small surrounding neighborhood 5 and 6 foot setbacks and the building heights in the neighborhood context. Okay, please.
Where'd everybody go?
State your name and go ahead with the presentation.
My name is Bill McReynolds. I'm with City Ventures. We're partnered along with Vermont Homes. John Campanella will be joining us shortly here. And then we have our design team here, Jeff Chelwick with William Hesmelholtz Architects, and Katie O'Reilly with Katie O'Reilly
With the office of Katie O'Reilly Rogers.
So we just wanted to do a quick introduction. Unfortunately, just kind of due to timing issues, our landscape architect does have to excuse herself at 5 o'clock for another meeting. So.
We're not ready for landscape anyway. I just wanted to say hi. Missed you guys.
So, okay, with that?
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Jeff Chelwick, William Hesmelholtz Architects. We have for your review also this is just a small size copy of the exact submittal, so it's a little easier to look at as you're going through the project. Here's that. Same thing as this, only smaller.
Okay.
And one more. There we go. I'd like to start by kind of apologizing for this original conceptual site plan that we did. Just want to let you know that we've read through the original comments from the original submittal. We've gone through the comments that you just read. And we've come back with a full submittal with discussion and just some ideas on how we're approaching all the comments and the issues that you had in place when we came back with this original one. So I'd like to start, if I can, just on the site plan.
Yeah, that's how it gets right.
Okay. Super. Thank you. Some of the key thing on the site plan was that we studied alternative or layouts, different design styles, and everything from a site layout point of view, and we did what was commented on earlier, which was basically a total redesign of the building from what we had previously for what's in front of you today, taking into account a number of the issues that were addressed and asked for, and what we we're proposing and suggesting is that what's key on the whole site is how the buildings interact with the adjacencies, as was discussed previously. How, as you're driving around the project on Montecito or Kelly Cesar Chavez, or even coming into the parking area here and looking into the project, how does that affect the public realm as they're viewing the project that's proposed in front of you? One of the key things we took away from the earlier comments was connectivity. We did see that the original submittal was in 4 blocks, which is very good for the phasing. We are providing the common area with each one of the phases, which was more difficult to do with a bar-type block building. And so what we did was like I said, redesigned the buildings and did for each one of the courts now can connect north or south or east or west to each one of the other courtyards through a sort of a covered paseo condition that goes across from one courtyard to the other.
Do you have a larger plan that you can point to?
Mm-hmm. There you go. Okay. I'll just use this then.
Yes.
No, it's a little lumpy. It's okay. So you can see, starting with the corner condition, we still are proposing the courtyard open to that corner. And then from that corner, it can go across or up to each adjacent. So from a pedestrian point of view, you can connect and visit each one of your neighbors.
Is that open to the sky or tunnel?
It's open to the sky to this point and then is covered as a paseo coverage. And we have a detail of that on the building plan itself, showing some pop-outs and arches and things that are in there. Yeah, also brought up the last time was the visitor and ADA parking requirements. So we're providing 2 here and 2 here so they can visit directly to this courtyard and then come across to connect over there. And that's what we're, again, proposing. So the connectivity through the site is enhanced and added to. Access through the site also was another concern from a vehicular point of view. So we opened up this entry, covered over a little bit with a trellis element, and also from Montecito. As we were requested to do, our understanding, requested to do that from a vehicular point of view, we would like to see if we could, or throw out that we turn this back into more of just a pedestrian connection itself. So from an overall point of view, that's what we're proposing from a site plan point of view. Katie's here for discussion of how we interlock and interact in the future of what happens in the courtyard in the center of the project, and then also the adjacencies to the negative impact of the adjacencies on the site from the north property line, and how the buildings will be screened from a landscape point of view. If I can go ahead and any questions?
Yes, what he said is what I will come back at prelim with.
Okay. Anything else?
No, we just wanted to give that.
So you're presenting just the site plan.
I'm going to go
right?
into architecture. If there's no more questions, I'll go into the
Yeah.
building plans themselves. On the building
And I'm
plans.
leaving.
Bye.
I've had my say.
Thank you for coming.
Okay.
Appreciate it. What we're proposing in front of you is 5 different townhome building plans ranging in size from 986 to 2177 square feet. We now, with the pedestrian connections through the building, still have a third of the plans have side-by-side garages, and all but 6 of the plans have direct access into the unit from grade. And so from the garages or from the front door of the unit, you could go directly into the upper level, which is generally the living, dining, kitchens, and are on the second floor with outdoor space adjacent. If I could just go to the last, sort of wrap up with the colored elevation at the end here. I don't know if that's the bigger one, but
It's easier for us to
okay.
under the television.
One of the concerns was how the one building is repeated around the site. And so what we've done is on the last sheet here is show you what we propose for Montecito and Calais Cesar Chavez of taking the one building type that we have and modifying it from a architectural design point of view to create different elements. On this one we have a side-to-side gable and framing, different detailing on the stair. On Calais Cesar Chavez we have an alternative to that, and redoing the framing and redoing some of the detailing, creating a little tower element. So we're creating more variety and alternatives as you're driving around the project from the different streets that are in front of you. The enclosed stairs that we had previously, that's why we changed to the outside stairs for the end elevations to give more of a open feel and more of a scale change and a massing break on the buildings themselves. Lastly was the adjacent to the north and the property line and how we impacted or affected by that. The north property, that end elevation also was redesigned, so instead of having an outside stair, it has an enclosed stair with limited smaller windows for that adjacency. That's correct. That's the upper level elevation. So to wrap up, what we've attempted to do and are proposing in front of you is to have this building type with this one building type with the connectivity to the courtyards with an alternative, a totally different elevation here and over here too, to respond to the adjacent different conditions. Still have the courtyards open to the surrounding area because we feel it's important to have that interaction and that view into the project from there, knowing that we're going to come back with additional comments and questions. We look forward to just sharing our ideas with you today and just hearing what your your feeling is on what we're proposing in front of you today.
Do we have elevations here?
Yes, we have elevations for the entire project.
Can we look at that?
Sure can, yes.
Where is it?
The north elevation is shown on sheet A5 and is called Buildings 1 and 2 Alternative Front Elevation. I don't know how much detail you wanted me to go into on this, but if you look at the drive aisle elevations, what we've done is we've taken the detail and the proportion and massing change around the outside and included that all around the building. We have to have the same amount of detail on the drive aisles as we do on the fronts, because those are connected to the project, and we are now, those are enhanced more so than we were going to propose earlier.
So this one is where? And there's another one, like there's one here, and then there's another one, there's another thing?
Yes, what we did was we took this one building, and we showed you all the elevations that go around that building, which is mirrored over here and then flipped this way, with an alternative elevation shown over here. So that as you're driving around, you see something different here, something different here. This and over here would be proposed at the same.
So each of these are mirrored somewhere.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. So from an internal street scene, you're absolutely correct, yes.
Okay. So I'd like to open that up to the board for do we have no public comment?
Make one more comment? I just wanted to, in terms of the ultimate partnership, this is a partnership between City Ventures, Vermont Homes, sorry, you're over there now, and the Housing Authority also. So the landowner is the Housing Authority of the City of Santa Barbara, and 40 of the 48 units will be price restricted. So per the conditions of approval on the community.
Okay, thanks. Staff?
Yeah, we do have one letter of concern from Ms. Paula Westbury. We'd like to acknowledge for the record.
Okay. Anyone from the public would like to speak? Seeing no one, close that portion. Bring it back to the board for questions. Keith? Carrie?
No question.
Dawn?
No question.
Paul?
Thank you. I have no questions.
Clay?
I'm sure I have some, but I don't have them right now.
Carol?
So, could you repeat the minutes? Could you read them like?
Okay, so there's it's like I'll read number one. Applicant is to return with complete submittal per the standard Ebr requirements to include a complete site plan and elevations. And then we have a further 6 items that they are to provide these items. An appropriate scale and grade I think it's grade, but it says grain for proposed building blocks. Pedestrian connectivity between the project's open spaces, acknowledgement to site conditions at the edges of the property, solar orientation to the open spaces, human scale and vehicular circulation plans, multi-entry points for pedestrian and vehicular circulation points, orientation to public streets and the public face of the project. And then the last one was address the building along the north property line and how the proposed project abuts these areas.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay, bring it back
I
to...
did think of one question.
Go right ahead. Go on.
And that is, if it's the housing authority is the landowner, the city is the landowner, right? Then normally when they come to us with projects, they come in with sometimes less than half the amount of parking spaces. I think that they would typically be required to provide, and they state that their affordable units don't need the standard parking, but in your case, you're providing all of the required 2-car covered parking spaces. Why is that?
It was a requirement.
Mr. Chair, let me just provide a little bit of clarification on, I think what Don's referring to are other projects that are rentals, affordable rentals, versus these are going to be purchased properties.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so back to the board for comments, and Keith?
I guess I still have a lot of the concerns from the first go around, in that the scale of the site plan elements and the way they're just kind of pinwheeled around and not really acknowledging different site conditions. I mean, we have a courtyard that's opened at the corner, and it's exactly the same as a courtyard at the mid-block. And the courtyard that faces south is the same that faces north. I mean, that fundamental kind of plan partie for me still doesn't acknowledge the varying surrounding conditions to the degree that I would expect. I think the pedestrian connections between the quadrants is really minimal, and I mean, it looks like kind of a long, narrow hallway sort of thing. I think we're looking for something more of a traditional Santa Barbara Paseo type of connection. So I think my concerns are still at that fundamental site plan level. I mean, if I look at the ground floor plan, the actual habitable space that's on grade facing the public realm is maybe a fifth of the overall frontage, and the rest is taken up either with garage or open space. So that's where my concerns are. I think architecturally, the direction that's represented here is appropriate. I think I'd like to see a little more variation vertically as things develop, so that kind of the profile of the building has a little more variety. But I think the general direction is appropriate for the style. But I still have concerns with the site plan.
Thanks, Keith. Gary?
I'm happy in the direction that it's going from where it was a few weeks ago. I think that there's still some issues on the building, particularly Building 1, how there's some rather plain facades at the garage ends. I'm still a little bit leery about the 2-foot setbacks from the property line. And I don't think that this is the best way to even though there is a 6-foot area in the right of way, I don't think that planning wise that the 6-foot right of way is a way to get your landscaping in and have your project going, because we don't know what's going to happen with that in the future. So I really feel like these setbacks that you're having in comparison to some of your neighbors that have very generous 12-foot setbacks. And and I mentioned that last time, and I'll mention that again, that I don't know if those setbacks are appropriate. I agree with my colleague here about the corridors being long and narrow, and I think that they're somewhat... They need to be a little bit more opened up. I think they're somewhat a little scary how long and narrow they are. And I would think that there would be some areas that they could be opened up. And I'm going to leave my comments at that. But in general, I think that the direction that is improved.
Thanks, Gary. Dawn?
I don't have any problem with the architectural style that you're proposing and the way you're breaking up the massing and the overall kind of scale of the project, number of stories and that kind of thing. But I still have a fundamental problem with the site planning, and it's because I can't get over the fact that I want to just take all 4 of these buildings and flip them upside down so that all the courtyards are in the middle and facing each other, so that you're not forcing children to say, well, which playground should we play in today? Let's play in the one by my house. instead of the one down the street. And you're not, with this site planning, it's not promoting a neighborhood gathering spot. It's, all of these rooms that are directly off of all the courtyards are shown as offices. And I can understand that they really can't be anything other than that, because you had that space and you wanted to provide some kind of an entrance off of those courtyards. But I'm having a problem with the garages and these long, like everybody else said, these long, what I'm going to perceive as windy, dark, shady corridors, and not getting light and not having plants grow in them. I don't think they're going to grow really well. And then more importantly, I can just see a better design being that you integrate all four of those courtyards into one big courtyard, and then you decide how far away the buildings are in the middle to one another. But then you're not having to provide vehicular. You're essentially creating 4 new public streets, or 2 new intersecting public streets in Santa Barbara that I don't think are necessary. So that's my only comment.
Thanks, John. Paul? If we go to that site plan SP2, I'll tag on to what Don says, and I completely agree that when I look at just one of the buildings in one of the quadrants, I really like what's happening here. But just repeating it 4 times, I'm not satisfied with the solution, and I just don't get how it works. I think this motor court area doesn't work. There's a lot of hardscape, not enough landscaping. It just seems too cold. I think this is the wrong solution for putting the housing on this lot. I don't know what the previous solution looked like, but the building that's designed looks like it was designed somewhere else, or maybe you designed it specifically for this solution, and it works well, but when it's repeated like it is, it's creating some awkwardness that I just don't, I'm having difficulty understanding, and it really is the front part and the back part and how they interact. And even though when you look at the one elevation, it looks fine. So I am having difficulty with this project.
Thanks, Paul.
Clay?
Not too much more to add. The one thing I understand this project needs to go is coming to us as a sort of a phased approach, where they can build one quadrant and then come back and build another quadrant, or build 2 at once and then come back and complete the project. And I can understand why. However, I think it's working against the project as a whole in terms of the site planning. And you've already heard, I'm not going to reiterate what other people have said. My biggest concern is 267 feet of street with garages on either side in both directions, 288 in the other. I think a good solution for this site would be to look at how to develop the site and then how to phase it appropriately, as opposed to how to phase the site and then develop it. In terms of the architecture, this area of town could use a project like this, and I think it's great to do the low income or fixed price housing, and it's definitely needed in that area of this town, and I'm glad to see it come into the neighborhood. And I like the way that the corner has been addressed at Calle Caesar and Montecito. And that's about as far as I go on the things that I'm appreciative of the project. I think that there's massing studies, and there's some odd cantilevers on these inside corners here, where the building's very massive and overhanging 3, 4, 5 feet. But I think the real issue on this project isn't so much getting into the finite details. It's really the site planning effort, and we brought that up last time, and here we are again talking about it. And I think that's your number one issue that we have to resolve. how do you do a phase build construction, but design it so that it doesn't look like a phase build construction? That's all I got.
Okay, Carol, thanks, Clay.
I think everybody that I've heard so far is really saying the same thing.
So I'm really not going to mince any words. I think Clay actually just said it really well. The 4-quad design concept is not the best examples of Santa Barbara multi-unit development. And I think just Clay said it really well. Good site plan and then figure out how to do it phasing. But these 4 quads, it's not working. This is the second time you've come back. You've listened to a few select comments, I think, but the overall site plan, it's not the best examples of what Santa Barbara has done in the past. And I think this is the #1 issue. And you have 1.77 acres. You have 48 homes proposed. It should be like a little village. It shouldn't be like this, public housing that was built in the 70s. And I would suggest the award-winning projects of Santa Barbara in the past 5 years, take a look at what other architects have done, and I think you'll get an idea of what's expected.
Thanks, Carl. I think generally agree with what the other members have said, but there's a few things about the project that I'd like to say that they're good. And what it is that I've noticed is that your basic planning creates problems. The axial down the middle, it creates problems where these become the forgotten or the more of a service element to the project. And I think that this shows the difficulty in getting a quality of axial connection, a quality of connection that goes from one area to another. You enter a very stark tunnel across here, and then you get another stark tunnel to get to a nice spot. So you can't actually keep that quality as you get towards here, or even where you make the jump right here. The quality actually ends all the way back here, and then you have this long jump to get there. So I think it shows itself in that regard. However, the good things that I like about it is that even though the type of design that you have affords right up to the street a minimal elevation that's right on the street, and that's really good because you take the long length of this elevation, and yet you only get this amount and you get that amount, and then and it happens here. And then the other thing about it is that it erodes going back that way, and it erodes going back this way too. So I think that there are strong things that are happening in here, but they create bad things that are happening in here, and it's like you need to have a balance to make the project successful. One of the things I noticed, for instance, is that one of the weak points will always be this intersection. And then when you look at the planning of it in terms of the architecture, you look at this is the corner here that makes 4 corners of that. That is so weak. I mean, that is really, really weak. You end up with this intersection that's cold, vertically stark. It has no voids in the corner at all. I mean, one of the things would have been done is to take the little balconies that you have here and flip it to the corner and put the kitchen over here, so at least the corners have these 4 voids that maybe they speak to each other on the corners, you know. And that's a great spot to be able to have a void, but it doesn't have that. And I think that that's what you see in the problematic side of the project. So, you know, it would be nice that you can get the benefits of these, but not have such a stark problematic. And that's, for me, that's where I would like to see your project go. I think when you come back, you need to really provide composite elevations where we see not just the one, but right across, a full street elevation. I think that if you have this kind of image that is before you already, where you have this service we really will need to see how you address that in the paving and the landscaping to see how soft it is, because right now it's a tunnel on both sides and you're just seeing garage doors, and it's going to be a challenge to be able to soften that, and so we need to see something like that. So composite elevations to scale, some sections would be very helpful. I think a key thing I heard on this side here was variety and variation. And that's another, those two things. And that's what it for me. Yeah. So, who would like to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Do you feel that this is a workable site plan solution and that this architect should continue with this basic premise and continue or should he redesign and come up with another solution, as Clay was suggesting, where come up with a nice village concept for 40 some odd homes or 80, whatever it is, and then figure out how to phase it?
Okay, I'll tell you, my personal view is I think that their site planning is weak in this regard. Now, I think that the other parts of their project, because of that minimal elevational view and the erosion, for me, I think that that's such a strong thing that if they were able to turn the service lines area back and turn that into a good thing, it could work. If they cannot get there, then I think that they really have to start fresh. And I think it's a real uphill challenge. And if they can't see that that can be easily done, then I think you have to look at going in another direction.
Is it appropriate to ask a question?
Yes.
One of the things that we were trying to interpret from the last time that we were before you was in terms of vehicular access.
Yes.
And so if you recall in our initial plan, we had so there was no access from Cali, Cesar Chavez, or Montecito. And in terms of that relationship, so we opened it back up. I mean, our preferred option would be actually to close it so that we can actually enhance, as you were speaking, those internal streets. But we were under the impression from the comments of ABR that they wanted that pedestrian, their vehicular, specifically vehicular access open. And we were just wondering if we could get a sense if there's a desire for the vehicular access versus pedestrian on those entrances from Montecito and Cali Cesar Chavez specifically.
I'll tell you mine and then I'll ask the other members. I mean, I think it's, I would definitely prefer not to see the only entrance being here and all the traffic having to come out here and go in and come back out. I would like to see the project open itself up to the public a lot more. So anytime you have an enclosed big service area that becomes like a security thing, I personally prefer to see it more open. But I'll let the other members speak to that.
I guess if I could, just on that comment though, I guess my specific question though is to the, I think you did say you don't want that to see it as one
entrance
for the vehicular access.
Yeah.
But if we, let's say just Montecito, if we were to close Montecito so that it was still open to the public, you know, so we'd still have a pedestrian
and ability to go through, but maybe not vehicles.
Vehicles, which, you know, increases the security in terms of that feel of, so it doesn't become necessarily a safety issue. I think you made the comment specifically regarding children playing, you know.
It might be a good thing. So it becomes more of a limited, you can't drive up and down fast, stuff like that. It becomes more of a pedestrian.
So instead of that 280 feet, it's, you know,
Keith?
140.
Comment on that?
I'm not sure what the question is. I think the fundamental site plan layout is so flawed that, you know, I'm hesitant to comment to mislead the applicant that there's a solution there. I think multiple access points is a good thing with a project of this scale, and leave it at that.
Gary?
First off, I'd like to say I agree with Chris that the project has some bonuses with the large street open spaces to the street front, but I think that the basic plan design of the plus plan design with the garages all centrally located, I don't think that's the best solution. I don't think the quad solution is our best solution for this site, and I think that they haven't explored other options and phasing it in a different direction. So I'm gonna say that then I don't think the site planning's there.
Okay, Dawn?
I don't think it is either, and I apologize to the applicant if we didn't make that clear last time, but I know my comment last time was that I was not in favor of 4 courtyards. But it didn't state specifically in the minutes, my comment, and
Yeah.
I apologize for that, but I still feel really strongly, and maybe I should have asked it as a question, why didn't you look at that as an option?
Yeah.
We actually did study a number of different alternatives, and each one of them had different, whenever you design something, there's different positives and negatives to it. And we were taking it from an approach on this one of what the adjacent corners are to create the courtyards around the project, around the site, so that as you're driving around it, what you look at and see there. And then seeing that this was more of a, you can see it very clearly in the site plan, but from a visual aspect and understanding that we're going to landscape this and do some special things out there and come into account and relook at this area here and really enhance that and potentially close this off so it wasn't as visible from Montecito. But we flipped this building around and this building around, and there were always other negatives that went along with it.
Yeah, I just feel like, just to complete my thought,
Yeah.
I just still feel the same that I did last time, in that we do want the buildings to look good from the outside. And I trust that they will, based on what we're seeing now as a complete application with all the elevations. I'm just seeing this project as more successful from a livability standpoint if all of the open yard areas are integrated. And
Paul, quickly.
I would just say that you need more than one access, or else you're going to have too many. And then I think the site planning is not working.
Thanks. Clay? Go. Carol?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with I think that's not really the issue to discuss. And I just, as the landscape architect on the board, I just want to say, a couple times you've said, with landscaping on the driveways, I could even look at the site plan and know these straight lines with these tiny little planting opportunities is not going to give us the landscaping that's needed. So I would plant the word meander in your head, because meandering hard, roads or driveways is going to allow the embellished planting, and then you could skirt next to it, and then it'll allow it, and that's where you get your landscaping. And I just think that, all right, so that's my thought.
Thanks. So, I don't know if it helps, but yeah, I think you have, with this plan, there's a big challenge before you. It's site plan. It's a big challenge. And you have to assess whether or not you can make it work by doing more, or that you're going to try something else. But you can see that the board really has a trouble with this site planning.
I guess I have another question specifically regarding Mr. Mosel's comments regarding the setbacks. So per the conditions of approval from the City Council, they had requested 0 setbacks for the entire project to blend into the area. So I don't know if there's the City Council, it's in the conditions of approval for the 0 setback.
this has already been to City Council.
Yeah, it's approved.
The old
No. This plan.
Yeah, but this is a new plan.
The old plan requested no setbacks.
Correct.
At all.
Okay, that's okay.
Then that
We're
goes
going
with
to
my
leave.
plan. That goes along
We're going
with
to
my
leave
site
that for
plan.
clarification. We'll let staff give us a little presentation on that when we come back. Then, or you want to quickly answer that?
Just quickly, right now, the project was a specific plan was approved for the project site, and there are a number of criteria, and one is that no setbacks. So this project is allowed to have no.
It's allowed to have no setbacks.
Yes.
Okay. That.
Okay.
Okay.
Just
for
Okay.
clarification. Okay.
Can I have a motion then? Who would like to draft something?
Struggling with words.
Mr. Chair, I'll try to float a motion out there.
Thank you, Clay.
Where do we start?
Composite elevations. Sections.
I'm just going to start off with site planning. So generally, the board feels that the site planning isn't appropriate for this project and needs to be studied. Look for ways to integrate the courtyards with one another, and provide a more village-like feel to the site planning. look for ways to design the project and then phase it, as opposed to phase the project and then design it. Come back with composite elevations of all 4 sides, including if the interior alleys are still there, including the interior alleys.
Variety and variation.
I don't want to get too much into. I mean, the architecture. I think the architecture. I'll just put this in the motion. The architecture seems appropriate for the site. However, once the site planning is worked out, then we'll comment more on the specifics of architecture.
Very good.
I'm going to leave it at that for now. Somebody can add more in the discussion.
Okay. Do we have a second? We have a second, Carol. Under discussion.
Under discussion, and maybe I missed it. Was there anything in there about? Or am I the only one that thinks that the 4 courtyards individually are not working? It's in there.
Mr. Chair, I would agree. Yeah, the repetitive nature of the pinwheel kind of concept is inappropriate.
Okay.
I would, Mr. Chairman.
Would the 2 maker and the second maker like to comment on that?
Yeah.
Would you like to either add it or what?
Let me just add mine. Something that, like, given 1.77 acres should be designed as a total village concept, or whatever you want to say, instead of these 4 individual blocks of housing. I don't know how to say it, but that's the thought that I have behind it.
Can I say something about Keith's input about what he wanted to add?
Okay.
Because I don't necessarily agree that it can't be 4 of the same buildings.
Something that could just add to the motion?
I don't think that should be added, is what I'm saying. If Keith wants to add that a repetitive building is not appropriate, I think that's going too far. I think that it could work. It's just the site planning is wrong.
That's the fundamental aspect of this site plan. I think we're misleading the applicant if we don't give them clear direction that this is an inappropriate site plan approach.
Well, I agree with Keith. I don't know if the others do.
I do too. So in the motion, I think that we need to direct the applicant to study a new site plan that isn't 4 buildings mirrored and mirrored and mirrored.
Okay.
So that's an emotion now. So how do you want to phrase that for the motion?
Applicant to move away from the pinwheel design and the repetitiveness of the 4 quadrants. However, repetitive buildings could work on this site if it's more in a village feel and the site plan and courtyards work together.
Okay, very good. Okay. Any other thing under discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Against? Motion carries. Very good. Thanks, Clay. That was a good way to put it. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So,
would it help if the next time if you guys got a set of the conditions that we're working off of?
Anything that could help guide us so that we don't make the wrong, helps us.
There is a specific plan in place, specifically for this 1.8 acres.
Okay.
Approved by the City Council.
Okay. That would help. Are we taking a break? Okay. Item number 3, 920 East Ortega Street. Hi, everybody.
Much smaller project. I'm just looking at it. So, I don't really have
just making sure.
Thank you. So as they set up, this is coming in for preliminary review. We saw this on the 2nd of November. Continued indefinitely. The full board with the comments return with a solution to maintain privacy between the rear unit and the adjacent property. Provide wayfindings to the rear unit. Return with a composite elevation. Confirm with staff the location of the proposed storage located in the proposed garage and the height of the raised deck within the required setbacks. Okay, if you could say your name and proceed with your presentation.
Good evening. My name is Lenny Grant. I'm the architect for the project. And Brett Vernon is the owner of the project.
And Chris Gilliland, landscape architect.
Thanks.
And I think you stated all of the comments from last time, and then there's a couple of other revisions we made to the project. So I'd like to turn page
Right ahead.
P1.2,
1.2.
which is our site plan.
East Ortega.
Okay. First of all, wayfinding. A couple of things we did was. Do I need to give any more of a summary of the project? I think most everybody was here last time.
You don't have to.
Okay.
I think you're okay.
So from a wayfinding standpoint, we're proposing at this point to score and color, potentially color. Actually, I think our landscape architect had a different idea, maybe, and remove the gate that was there to give visual cues to the rear of the building. The patios or the decks that were prior were too high for the zoning code. We've lowered the decks so that they're less than 10 inches from adjacent grade. We provided a stoop outside, which we've confirmed with staff that this is allowable to have a landing just outside the door so we can maintain access from this bedroom here, because we felt it was a good element to have off the bedroom. So we've changed that here, and then the front setback as well. On the front fence, we're lowering to maximum 42 inches, and there was a comment last time that the wrought iron was maybe a bit harsh, so we proposed to change that to wood, and it's on the color board and elevation. If we switch to the elevations. Yeah, thank you. Sheet P2.1. Trying to find the elevation looking upside down. We modified this elevation, we added a couple of windows and reduced the size of the rafters. As before, it was a little bit heavy, and we were asked to take a look at that. It was a little bit stark looking, so that was a change from last time. I hate to do this today, but can we switch back to the site plan, please?
So is this elevation this or this one?
It's this elevation right here.
That one, okay.
Yeah.
All right,
So
great.
this would be the left elevation.
Right.
This is the window from the neighbor's bedroom, so just to study to make sure there wasn't a privacy issue. This is the second floor. Here's the second floor plan. So you can actually, that's probably a better one to confirm.
Okay.
So we don't feel that there's an issue there. We studied that and feel like we're okay.
Very good.
And then here in the garage, last time we were here, we had the storage back to the rear 3-foot setback. So we've pulled that storage back, but we've also pulled part of the garage back too. Working with staff, indicated that 22 feet was reasonable to call inside of the garage, so we pulled the rest of it back. And
that's right there.
So I think that's mostly it. We have the composite elevations here as well, and
So that's the front. That's the building in the back.
Correct.
2-story. This is the eastern elevation. That's the front of the building.
Mhm.
Eastern elevation. This elevation in here is what? This one?
this elevation.
This one, yeah.
Yes,
Front.
exactly.
Okay. And that's going down the street, going down the driveway.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Okay. So,
That's
all right. So staff has a
I'd just like to acknowledge a letter of concern from Ms. Paula Westbury for
Thanks
this.
very much. I'd like to bring back the board for questions. Keith?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Gary?
No questions.
Dawn?
No questions.
Paul? Clay? Carol?
So, did you make a landscape presentation?
Not exactly.
Okay. Okay, so what my questions are, I'm just going to go into questions. And I know we're kind of running behind generally. All right, a new two-car garage, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Existing building remodeled.
Yes.
And something new is going on top of the garage.
Yes.
Okay, new terrace. This is existing.
Existing.
Okay. Why is this as wide as it is if this is just one car trying to circulate into the garage in the back? Why is this not narrowed, this?
We just never discussed that. It's
Never
an
discussed
existing driveway, so.
We did add these cutouts here and did an espalier lavender starflower to provide green wall. but-
Two-car garage, how, if there's a car parked here, how do these cars, do they back out of the driveway or?
Yes.
They back out?
And this car is in tandem with the car that's here, and which belongs to this existing unit. This car is specified for this unit here, which we talked to staff and transportation about, and they said that that's something that has been occurring in the city and is normal and is acceptable.
Okay, all right, well, okay, that covers it. Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Okay, comments? Keith?
No comments, Mr. Chair. I think this project's ready for preliminary approval.
Okay, thanks. Gary?
No comments. I think they addressed all of it.
Great. Dawn?
I feel the same way.
Paul? Okay, Clay?
Comments?
Carol?
Oh, yeah, I just have just a landscape.
Okay, let's do it.
And this is like my little pet peeve of things, is if you're walking down the street, you look down a driveway and you see a garage and there's just nothing interesting. I think that there are opportunities here. You could either do like a wooden trellis and have some landscaping that's, on the garage door, or in places where one car is circulating in, a bay could be on this side and a bay could be on that side, so you could get two small canopy trees. We do have that over there. Okay, so we do have an opportunity to get like a vine over here. But it seems to me that it's a missed opportunity. It's really going to make the property better, trash recycling. Is, just an opportunity to do something like that where you get two trees, and then that whole experience of looking down the thing is great. I mean, that really starts to improve it. So maybe landscape can come back on consent if the board's fine with what everything else is doing.
That's fine.
Okay.
Okay, so who can make a nice, simple motion now?
Chair,
Yes, please.
So this is for preliminary approval with landscape returning at consent.
Correct.
Can't separate the two.
Well, you want final?
We could send this to consent to, I think everybody would be comfortable.
Final consent.
It's the final one. Consent.
Okay.
I'll second the motion with the addition of the comment to add additional planting along the driveway, and opportunity for a vine on the trellis.
Perfect. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Against? Motion carries. Thank you.
I don't get to come back and see you guys again?
No. Consent.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Going to take any extras with. Thank you.
You guys tried to dry us out?
We're just a few minutes late.
Okay, item number 4.
This will be really quick.
Okay.
We're counting on you.
I know it's not here.
It'll be quick.
Better be, Brian.
Well, it all depends on you guys, of course.
Yeah.
Denied.
Yeah, we've
All
heard
right.
that before.
All depends on you guys. Brian Cornell, Adam Cunningham, Susan Van Atta. This is a pretty simple proposal, and then we'll give you the details, but essentially this is Whole Foods, and they want more parking. And so this plan is the demolition of that little freestanding building in front.
Yes.
And the creation of parking. In the process, we have tried to seize on the opportunity to create a better pedestrian connection from State Street to the Whole Foods entrance. And
It's coming.
It's coming.
Coming soon there to near you.
And I'll let Susan talk more about it, but she's come up with a kind of an ingenious method of creating essentially a boardwalk that would span right over the top of this bioswale that we already have created here. So I do have a photo that basically is the line of the planter that we are proposing to create this access point into. And then incorporated into this proposal before you tonight are just a few cleanup items. There's some real lighting issues out there, so we're proposing some lighting underneath these awnings and a couple of other. This would be a new light standard, of course, but adding a light standard here and I think a couple here. Is that correct, Adam?
What's that? Yes.
A couple more in this location, and we can show you those cut sheets, but. It would be best, since this is more landscaping than anything, turn it over to Susan and have her explain the landscape aspects of this.
Okay.
As Brian mentioned, we already have a portion of this bioswale in place, and we wanted to maintain that. And, it's over here. I was backwards. And so we take some of the trees that are already planted in the bioswale and move them into, spread them out into the new portion of the access way. So what we're looking to do really is to create a pedestrian inviting entry with some unique paving, then permeable paving across the parking, and then this would be a boardwalk on top of the bioswale with the plants between, and then we just think it provides a nice spine and a nice strong pedestrian access to the middle of the project, to the front door of Whole Foods. The rest of the planting is in keeping with what has been implemented already with the skyline trees on either side existing, the olive trees that run through the islands, and the same kinds of understory plantings that we have already put in place.
Okay. Do we have a cut sheet for the lights?
Yes.
No. I mean, the parking lot lighting is just to match existing.
And now I have that's this fixture.
Okay. So you just add these in these positions that you showed us.
Yeah, and then
The ones along here.
All right, we're going to do some sconces just up in these awnings,
so
you can really see them.
we'll need to submit those fixtures, but basically they're intended to be just up in this awning overhang area.
Sounds good. Okay, staff. Public comment.
One letter of concern from Ms. Paula Westbury.
Great, thank you. Back to questions. Keith.
What is the low wall of the street? Is that wall or is that's the existing wall? Okay. That's it.
Gary.
Am I understanding that the new boardwalk / walkway, is that going to remove any trees in the process?
We'll be transplanting those trees. We are losing buildings.
Right.
And so some of the trees that we had planted in the island would be transplanted into the new portion. In the end, there will be considerably more trees than exist there now.
But we'll be losing both trees and landscaping in that area, right?
Well, there will be, to the extent we lose, there's still a good number of trees, but we deliberately meandered the walk around the trees, and trees are still a very important element of the planting in the parking lot.
But these are the three that are being
Those are being transplanted.
relocated,
Uh-huh.
that are there now.
They're in the bioswale now, but they're just being repositioned.
Yeah.
Right. They're there, but they're being moved.
Okay. John? Paul?
My old question. This is the city sidewalk. Are you planning on going with a different color at the city sidewalk as a transition to what's happening here, or is this just what?
We are proposing to put a decorative concrete paving, and what we're planning to do is illustrated here, just dropping leaves into the landscape, into the concrete. And that's an example of where we've done it before. And just to sort of play up the entrance there in a subtle way to a pedestrian.
And would it be a different color also?
Yes.
And is Public Works aware of this as a proposal? That they don't have a problem with it?
We haven't. I don't think Public Works has weighed in on it, so there's a chance that they will have a problem. So
Okay.
you guys might speak to that, or
Whether you like it or don't like it could make a difference to them, because this is comments only, I believe. Because this is comments only.
Well, if you don't mind, I'll jump into the question or comment. I think it's too small of something in order to allow this business owner, because then every business owner is going to want a little red carpet in front. Where it works is at the El Paseo, where they did a wide section of it, and it's all flagstone. And so there's, I don't want to say it can't happen, but I think it's just too minute of a little area. So that's just my perspective on what I saw there.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Okay. One question about the walkway. Does it need to be ADA accessible? And if so, do you have the required widths that you need?
It is ADA accessible, and in addition to that, you'll see that we have to have those raised dots at every crossing. So in addition to the widths and the smoothness of the surface, the boardwalk will have little curb edges, raised edges, which is required when you do boardwalks for universal accessibility. But that's why these raised dots are shown at all the crossings. That's also, in addition to what you've mentioned,
dots.
yeah, we love those raised dots.
truncated domes.
Yes, those truncated domes. We have those at every crossing.
Okay. Carol?
So, okay, so the first 2 weeks when Whole Foods opened, the parking lot was full. Okay, now it's virtually not even half empty. I mean, half full. I just have sort of I'm confused of why the owner would want to add more parking when I shop here regularly and more than half of the parking lot is empty. So I'm just kind of confused about this application. And I'm also not even clear design-wise or planning-wise. You cannot cross the street on State Street where you're what you're calling your entry plaza. You can't cross State Street. There's a planting medium with pine trees. It would be dangerous to even encourage someone to kind of get, forced or encouraged to go into that spot when then you're really supposed to just be on the sidewalk on the side.
We're not trying to
get
make a
people across
connection
the street.
across.
I think there's even a median, so there's no way to get across that street.
It's just really to address the
walking
need
down
for
the
a pedestrian connection to State Street, not across State Street.
You wouldn't be able to see that little change in paving from across the street, for that matter, really. It's really meant for people walking down the street, and just to make it more pedestrian friendly from people who crossed at the light and are coming down, or over here coming along.
Yeah, but you're calling it a plaza.
Well, we won't call it a plaza anymore. I think that is an overstatement. I agree with that's a total overstatement.
And Carol, if I can just address your first comment, but we've had, internally we've had the same comments and discussions, and it's not our decision to make.
I understand that this is the application, and you're proposing this as a solution to it. All right, that's, I guess, my questions. Okay.
Okay. First, my question before we go into comments here is, I see you have that 6-inch dimension that's here, and I know that are you going to take down some of those existing curbs to make this curb? And I guess my only concern is I don't care how you build it. It's just that be careful that this is greater than 6 because it's such a tight parking spot
that, including my car, a lot of people have just damaged the front of their cars just trying to park there.
Yes.
And so just be careful with that kind of detail, please. That's all I'm asking.
Keeping it, you mean not having it exceed the, yeah.
Less than 6.
For your car, yeah.
Or you catch your...
Maybe one of those tennis balls on your windshield so you don't know.
Okay. Okay, comments, Keith.
It's got to go in the name of parking. So I think, I don't really have any major comments. It seems like it's a nice idea, and the pedestrian connection is good. I don't know if there's more of a splash that can be done planting-wise at the sidewalk just to make that connection point a little more, I don't know, visible or something, but that would be the only thought. Other than that, I think it's a fine proposal.
Gary?
I'm having a couple of problems with the boardwalk. First, I want to just know why. Why do you want to cover the bioswale with a boardwalk? Who's going to use that boardwalk and not? You can't push a shopping cart up it. You're going to push your shopping cart up the middle of the street like everybody does when they go to the grocery store. What is the purpose of this? To take up landscaping space in a parking lot, which is minimal in the landscaping space, and put in a boardwalk? I just don't get it.
Do you want me to?
Yeah, go ahead.
Got a comment or question?
Well, he jumped around. He started with comments, so we'll just. I'll answer honestly. We felt that the ABR in particular would potentially want to see something like this with this proposal of eliminating the building, and because there is not a good. Because currently there's not a good connection for the pedestrian through this parking lot. As soon as that building goes away, we felt that it was probably something that we needed to look at. If you all feel...
Can I address that too when you're done? Yeah. I just wanted to say I've done a lot of boardwalks, and people like boardwalks, and boardwalks are fun. They're just fun. And, the city just came out with... I just picked up a brochure, pass out to the staff. Their residence guide to, you've got your new guidelines. It's that brochure over there, Homeowner's Guide to Managing Stormwater. And it just celebrates that we're making a bioswale in this parking lot. It just celebrates it and puts it front and center and gets people to walk right on top of it and really get to know it. So it really is about image. It's about, something interesting, and it won't be the same old parking lot. And that's actually the idea behind it.
Carol? Dawn?
I love the boardwalk. I agree with Susan, and I have to walk home on a very long boardwalk every night.
Oh, yeah.
And I love it. It's a ceremony.
Yes,
and I also don't have a problem with the boardwalk terminating at the middle of that block, because in El Paseo, there's no place to cross when you leave El Paseo, or Paseo Nuevo, right at the end. In the middle, when you come to State Street, where old De La Guerra used to come through, you can't cross there either. So I don't have a problem with that ending right there and then having to go one way or the other way. And the only thing I would ask is that I think there's a monument sign somewhere in here. It's right here, and then there's another one here. So I would just ask that this monument sign be removed, because that monument sign was dedicated for whatever potential lead tenant was going to go in that building, and then it should come out.
Good point.
Thanks, Dawn. Paul? Clay? Carol?
The purpose, you slightly sold us on the purpose that the bioswale was there to purify or cleanse the parking lot water, the storm water. And so by taking away, and the plants are doing the cleansing, so by taking away the plants, all we have now is a very wide drainage inlet, in a sense. That's what my take on that. And these are my comments, Susan, I want to say them. The two landscape architects on the board during this time were not supportive of these extra wide planters, because They really didn't really work as bioswales because of the grading, and you could see on this plan the grading was executed in a way that the water really doesn't flow in there. And using this parking lot frequently, I could tell you that the space between the planters allowed for the cars is really, really, really narrow. And my suspicion in this application is that they were getting complaints from people that they really couldn't have a safe place to, like the cars were too close together, bumping back to back, and that you really don't have a lot of safe walking areas. But I think that's a result of these super wide planters, because the parking lot functioned perfectly before. So I look at this application, and I think Whole Foods sort of have this, delusion of grandeur. They have this paseo that's leading to their front door, and it's not in character of the size of the building and the importance in the neighborhood. It is not that important in the neighborhood. There's other developments proposed in the neighborhood that I think a boardwalk going to an entry is actually more appropriate. So I'm not in favor of taking away the small plants that actually do filter the stormwater, which is what's going to happen. There's not going to be any sun allowed to nurture those plants. They're going to be covered up with wood. So environmentally, I'm kind of confused of why, the center of this bioswale is now the main function is being removed. I'm not in favor of the textured paving in the sidewalk. I think that's almost like a marketing ploy in a way. I don't think it's consistent. I don't think, Taco Bell doesn't have it. So why should Whole Foods have it? I think this is a strange application that I feel a little bit uncomfortable about this. That's my comment.
All right. Well, we have all the comments. I'd like to have somebody make a motion.
Mr. Chair, let me just interrupt real quickly and just state that environmental review has been completed, so action may be taken.
Okay. Oh, and I didn't give my comments, actually. I forgot. So while you guys think about making a motion, I guess for me, my only comment again is this one here. Just look at the construction of that, as opposed to the appropriateness of having an accessible pedestrian area from here to the entry of this. I like the idea of having it. Because it's very tight to get through this parking lot. It's tight for cars, and I think it makes it that tight for pedestrians. So I like the idea of having it. I can't talk to the to how less successful it makes the bioswale, but I guess Carol could talk to that. So I'm not opposed to it, to the walkway itself. I do think that the highlight of this area should stay within the property line and not go out to the sidewalk. I agree with Paul on that I don't think that every owner should get their own plaque out there, and I'd rather see something uniform here and make something of this area here then as a celebration of that entry. I think that would be the better way to go. But that's it for me. I'm comfortable with the lighting. And
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion for preliminary approval with final on consent. Comment number 1 is that the architect is to bring cut sheets of both the parking lot lights and the canopy lights, or have them on the drawings. 2, show notation that the existing monument sign is to be removed at the building that's to be demolished. 3, remove the colored concrete at the public right-of-way sidewalk. 4, verify that the existing curb at the wheel stop for the cars shall be 6 inches or less when including the wheelchair stop at the boardwalk. That sounded so horrible. Maximum 6-foot high curb at boardwalk with wheelchair stop.
6 inch?
Yeah, because that's what this detail says, 6 inch max. So it's verify that it is 6 inches at the car stop at the boardwalk or the wheelchair
Great.
stop occurs.
Do we
And then making neighborhood findings. I mean, the landscaping's matching the existing. There's a loss of building, but the applicant feels it's necessary to add that parking. So that is what they're proposing to us.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second it, but what was that
By
last
Dawn.
little bit?
I worded horribly the
No,
comment.
but after that, you started talking about the appropriateness of the application. Is that part of the motion?
Well, when you make neighborhood findings, or you have to really say that it belongs in, it's in keeping with the context, that it's a loss of a building, and that.
Do you have to make neighborhood findings?
I think so.
It's not a residential project.
Then just delete that last comment.
All right.
I
So we
second
have
the motion.
first, second, under discussion, anything? No? All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Against? We have 2 against. Carol and Gary against. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See ya.
Okay, the board is going to take a 20-minute recess for dinner. Reopen the ABR for January 11th, 2010 with number 5, 403 East Montecito Street.
Good evening, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Members of the board. Nick Gonzalez here on behalf of Sprint and Clearwire. This is an upgrade of an existing facility. It's currently used as a Sprint wireless facility, and the addition would be to add broadband capabilities using the Clearwire broadband antennas in a new stealth chimney designed to match and mimic the existing chimney on site, which currently houses antennas. There would be 3 new panel antennas and 1 parabolic antenna installed. 3 of those antennas would be inside the new chimney, and then 1 would be inside actually our existing chimney. There's room in there for 1 of those. Currently at the site, there's antennas concealed, as I said, inside that existing fake chimney, and then also in the vases, the decorative vases on the other side of the facility. The equipment for the project would be located inside our existing equipment room within the building. And so none of the antennas would be visible from the surrounding view sheds. And the addition in terms of aesthetics would be the addition of that second chimney. And other than that, it's a pretty simple project, no grading, and then just minor trenching for power connections. And that's pretty much it. Go ahead and answer any questions you guys have.
Okay. We have public item.
Just 1 letter of concern from Ms. Paula Westbury.
Thanks. Keith, you have a question? Yeah.
It's going to look exactly like the existing one.
That's the idea.
And that's the existing one there.
That's the existing one right there, and it would just essentially be on the opposite side of the building, of that section of the building, to kind of keep it symmetrical. You can kind of see that in one of the sims here. Perhaps that one's best for showing that.
That's the pair that you're proposing right there. I mean, there's that one. That one exists already, and this one you're proposing.
Correct.
Okay. Gary? Dawn? Paul?
Just to clarify that there's already an existing chimney with different colors on it and banding and molding detail, and the new one is identical to that?
That's the idea, is to have them match.
Okay.
The proposed to match the existing in dimensions and also in aesthetics on the outside. Correct.
All right.
Okay, I had one question. I know the one is up there already. I'm always interested to find out what is this height here between the top of the roof and this.
And hopefully that's dimensioned on, there's a blow-up elevation just of the proposed chimney, and hopefully it's on there.
It keeps saying, it's different elevations, but it doesn't say where the top of this roof is to that.
Okay, let me see here if that's shown on here. So here you have 44.9 to the top of that, and I believe 49.0. So
4 feet, 4 feet 3 inches. Okay. All right. Comments, Keith?
Blend in, with the existing architecture, and so I think it seems appropriate.
Okay, Gary?
Seems to be okay.
Don?
I agree.
Paul?
Mr. Chair, on sheet A, 2.1. My only comment would be is to add to the drawing whatever foo-foo that's on the existing fake chimney with the molding and the kind of like little birdhouse window or the arch. It's just a different color. Because right now that's where I was getting confused, because it looks like all one plaster plane when it's being said that it's going to mimic and match the existing one that's up there. So,
all right.
Does that make sense?
We need some finished
some
detailing.
detail there.
The detailing that occurs here is not 100% what's matching there.
Yeah.
But the concept I'm fine with.
Yeah. And I'm fine with the concept too, because but I'm very leery of these buildings that will pop up around town now with multiple chimneys. And so I'd like to see this detailing come back to us, that chimney detailing, and have that on the drawing before we approve it. I think that the direction you're going to add one more is fine, but I'd like to see that detailing. Yep.
I was going to make a motion.
I was going to make a comment.
Okay.
The only comment I would make on the chimney is that it doesn't need to be exactly mimic that chimney. It can have some. It would either smaller or it should have some variation of that, so it's a little different as a building like that would.
Okay, and if I had to make any comment about this one that's there already, is that from what I can tell from one of the elevations, it looks like the red clay tile stuff that's in the inside of those openings seem to be very close to the plaster front, and it would be nice if they were just back a little bit so it looks more recessed. And that was the only comment I'd make on the existing one. So, okay, open for motion.
I'll make a motion for preliminary approval with the applicant to return to consent for final with proposed detailing of the final design of the chimney. And I'm not going to say anything about that it doesn't have to be the same. That's just a comment for you. That if you want to be safe, you can follow the existing.
Okay.
But if you want to go off on a tangent, then you're at the mercy of the consent reviewer.
Okay, so second by? Second by Keith. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Mr. Chair, let me just interrupt and make the, have the motion include the findings of no significant impacts, visual impacts.
Yeah, no adverse visual impacts. Finding can be made.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Against? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
This goes back over there. Okay. So, sixth item of the evening. 25 East Mason Street.
Oh, sure. Thank you.
SB Beach Properties, LP. Now when we back on track. What? You again?
Yeah. Didn't see me last time.
Oh, I see. You leave the most difficult for last.
It's not last.
Oh, you again? No. All right, here we go. All right, go ahead.
Okay, so what we have here is another existing Sprint facility that, again, is being upgraded with the addition of the Clearwire broadband antennas. In this case, this facility was actually obviously previously approved by ABR in, I don't have the case number, but I believe 2007. It's the addition of antennas, but it's behind existing screening, so that there is no new visual impact at all for the facility.
Those things exist?
Yeah, those are currently there. It's an operating wireless facility, and so it houses, I believe, a couple different carriers up there right now.
Roof like that? Whoa.
And yeah, those projections are the antenna housings themselves, and so with the addition of the new antennas, there would really be no visual impact from the outside. Same with the equipment, which would be in an existing equipment area within the building and not visible.
So all the equipment is held inside.
Correct.
These screens exist already.
Correct.
And you're just adding new antennas inside those screens.
Correct. All the changes would be internal.
Internal. We won't see anything new on the exterior.
No.
Okay. Staff?
Just like to acknowledge a letter of concern from Ms. Paula Westbury.
Thank you. Keith, questions?
No question.
Gary?
Confirm what you said. And I'm seeing a GPS antenna on the outside of this and some whip antennas typical. Those are not going to be exterior?
Those are existing. I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure exactly who those belong to. I actually don't think, I know they're not Sprint or Nextel's existing antennas.
So these are existing right here?
Yes.
That's not a new antenna, that's not proposed?
No.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, Dawn?
It's actually for staff. So why did this have to come to ABR if they're not adding anything or any structure or anything?
Well, the ordinance and per Jaime, we actually provide a public notice, and therefore, because we provided a public notice, we brought it back to full board.
Why did you have to provide public notice?
We've just done that as a courtesy for public, for wireless projects, for all wireless projects.
Yeah.
So now wireless projects are getting treated like all other projects, and they're requiring noticing for within the same radius as any other residential project.
Any other commercial project or mixed-use project, yeah.
And residential too?
Yeah.
Or not?
Yeah, it's the same as, it's a courtesy. It's not required per ordinance, but it's a courtesy notice that we started doing a few years ago.
But these four architectural elements that were added, they were permitted and built under a permit already. And the only reason it's coming back is because they never they never put the antennas in the time that they were supposed to put them in?
True. Yeah.
Okay. So, Paul? Carol? Okay. My only comment is that whatever our motion is, we just want to say that the board understands that there are no new visible elements going to be built on the building. That okay. All right. This is all existing already. Okay, so we open for a motion.
There's just one tile thing. It's only 4 inches. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. There will be an external GPS in it is. And that's really the only thing that needs to, because of the GPS signal, needs to kind of see in the 360-degree view. So it's usually try to place that as high as possible.
I don't think I can approve the project now.
So, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Yep.
The project proposal is acceptable as presented.
Okay. Do we have a second? Second by Gary.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, was that for preliminary and final?
Yes.
Preliminary
With the
and final.
findings?
Yeah. Just to, if the maker and the seconder could just add that the board understands that there are no new additional structures to be built on this project, visible build. Okay, just, all right?
Well, I think that kind of goes without saying. He's not proposing anything new.
That's what he said, and I'd just like to note that we're taking it on his word that he says that that's what's existing already, and I'm gonna bother to go through this note and go through existing other drawings or anything. So I would like to put that in there if you would like, so that it would give us a little bit more security. If you don't want, it's not a big issue for me. I just
As a second.
Okay. All right, fine.
okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 7, 949 Veronica Springs Road. Wow, we're 40 minutes ahead.
Gonna save the best to last.
All right. First Baptist Church, Hidden Valley. All right.
So similar to the last couple sites, and very similar to the last one, this one was a previously approved project, again, I believe in 2007 through the ABR, for the addition of antennas. This is not an existing facility, though, and so the clear wire antennas are going to be the first ones there. Looking back through the minutes of the old approval, it looked like the only real issues that were had with this was the height of the screen wall, and essentially just limiting that to what was approved on those drawings.
I remember this came through. So,
Too, but can you refresh our memory on what's just the before and the proposed after?
Yeah, it's flip. On the main body of the building, and there's a small existing screen wall there right now, I believe, for some of the just kind of rooftop equipment, and this would be an extension, an expansion of that screen wall.
So this screen wall is lower than it is now.
So what I would like to see is, this is the proposed 5 feet?
Yes.
But what's the existing? Is it that dashed
it's way
underneath?
back here.
Yes, yeah.
Ooh.
And so this is it's an expansion of that to a height that would conceal all the antennas that are proposed.
What was the previous approval, Michelle?
Right here. But it was closer last day. It was here.
Bigger before.
It was
taller, but not as wide.
Tighter.
Carol, you guys you want to see what was previously approved by ABR?
So it was in here, but it was 1 foot taller. It wasn't as wide. It was much tighter in, like about, I don't know what, 2.5 feet in from each side. So 5 feet overall narrower.
Why can't?
And 1 foot. Right.
Why can't you do that? Why can't you bring it back to where the building meets the vertical wall? Why does this stuff have to be out there?
I can certainly run that by the engineers, the RF engineer, and see if that's going to cause him any problems, or if he had that specifically moved because of that.
Yeah, because you can see that there's a gap here between the wall that's there and the equipment, and if that could be brought all the way back to as tight as possible.
So that all this equipment could be inside there, but just raise it up to hide it.
Even we can go to sheet A2. There's an enlarged plan at the skylight area. No, A2.
Wrong. It's the old.
We're doing this a little informally, but it is true that this thing is growing out,
yes,
but it's growing along the hip.
Right.
So it's not really an issue per se, and that these guys are actually in front of this wall.
But all we're asking is right now is that this gap between here be narrowed as much as possible to make the box.
But the space, you might maybe taking the 3 foot and making it 18 inches. And so that's a significant enough change to maybe make that 3 feet narrower. Going from 29 to 26 is a...
And I believe it has to just kind of do with the mounting brackets that they were planning on using at this location. I can see, though, if that's an issue, then if we can find a different mounting scheme.
And what I'm thinking is...
It makes the height of the parapet smaller, which makes it a little bit more believable.
The parapet on the previous
yeah, that was
really tall.
Yeah.
Was taller than this.
Right.
So the only reason I made that comment was to get it down to the same width that was previously approved, but the shorter height that's presented today, if it's possible.
I'm not sure they'll be able to get it down to because it looks like.
Are you saying, Paul, to bring it down even more? Like by
I'm saying they can't move this in that much because the actual equipment is now being mounted in front of the existing well.
In front of the skylight well.
And it would be a concern if this hip actually hit in the middle, but because they went and made all 4 sides grow the same amount, it still looks reasonable from the air.
So
I guess that's what I was pointing out.
I mean, I think that the key things is that we keep this always on that point, that it's equal all the way around. So these corners always end up where the roof changes, and that we minimize this dimension here. So if there is any gap that we can get here, like if we can get 8 inches on each side and it just comes in, that would be the best scenario. Okay. And stay to the 5 feet that we have, that height that you're proposing now.
I have one additional item.
Yeah, Gary?
If we look on either A3 and A4, we have the cable routing, which is going to be a 3-inch conduit, and it's run exposed on the exterior of the building and exposed on the rooftop.
Ooh. Exposed on the rooftop?
Yes, and I think that should be interior.
What does it say? It's dashed. Where does it say it's exposed?
It says route on the outside. Let's see, it says A80. It says proposed clear water to be routed in 3-inch conduit painted to match existing roof.
Yeah, right on the outside there. Oops. Dun, dun, dun.
So that could go inside the building, obviously.
I think it should, yes.
That'd be preferred for sure. Okay. Open for a motion.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
I'll just acknowledge a letter from Ms. Paula Westbury for the record.
Okay, thanks. Do you have a motion? Anybody want to make a motion?
How do we feel about if we're going to, my motion was going to state for the applicant to study the feasibility of making the dimension in plan view smaller, but how do we feel if he can't do that? And
I think we should let him try.
Okay.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you.
Okay. So my motion would be for a 2-week continuance back to the full board for the applicant to research the feasibility of reducing the dimension in plan view of the proposed parapet, but not increasing the height. And for the proposed conduit to be hidden within the existing structure.
Good. Second? Second by Carol.
Minor but significant comments. Do you think it could come back to consent?
I think with the antennas, I would rather see it. I'd like to see it come back before the board just because it's the antennas. It's a sensitive. But how do others feel? I would tell you, if they do what Don asked for, I'm game for it to go to consent.
Are you re-stuccoing the whole building? Is that what you're doing?
Are we? I'm sorry, re-stuccoing the building?
Yeah.
No.
There's another note on here that you're replacing the wood with stucco, and it's A83 replacing existing wood siding with stucco, and it's showing all over the place. So are you re-stuccoing the entire building?
That actually might be a note from just left over from the previous drawings. As I said, these were approved. Those are the new drawings. But when this was approved, it was, the site was designed to be built, and I think they were trying to do some work on the church at the same time. I'll actually have to check and see if that's something that they intended to do and if it was ever done, perhaps separate from this project.
I was speaking to the mic.
Sorry. I'll have to check and see if that was something that was ever done and if that was at the church's request. I don't imagine it was at my client's request. It was done. Okay. So.
Okay. Just take those notes off if they don't apply. And I would say, in answer to Carol's question, maybe we stated for the applicant to study, to research the feasibility of decreasing the size, and it could go to consent anyway. And if it hasn't been reduced to a proportion that is acceptable by the consent reviewer, it can always be bumped up to full board.
Okay. One thing to note here, that the screen in these drawings is said to be behind screen. The RF screen is said to be designed by others. In other words, they are not saying how that screen is designed. So I think we need to know when it comes back what the design of the screen is, what the finished material is, and how it's put together. Okay?
In fact, I remember us making that comment about the design of it when it came through before.
First then.
In 2007, I think.
Yeah.
I would
Mr.
say
Chair?
the same thing about the screen for that equipment. It shows there rather than just...
A82. Who's high screen painted with owner specified finish.
Another one they just showed
CMU. Well, all the finishes need to come back.
Okay.
All your remodel finishes and construction needs to come back.
So
back to full board?
Back to full board with the comment about the conduit, the proposed reduction in size, and then a third comment would be, if it's okay with the seconder of the motion, that the applicant to return with all proposed finishes and detailing.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Against? Motion carries. And with that concludes the agenda for this evening. Good night, Santa Barbara.
even